Have you got a drug bag?
October 19, 2012, Syracuse, New York.
So Baby Ben goes to get a drug wipe
just
while
after
Benny
8
Boy
p.m.
films
on the city's north
unlike who
side.
stopped him.
We've had a report you've been acting suspiciously.
The Sirius Police Department received
Acting
3
suspiciously
911 calls
isn't illegal,
for a
but
shooting.
drug driving is, and Ben's nose says
Officers
this guy's
rushed to the
recently been in
location
close
where they
proximity
found 2
to some
victims.
weed. Baby Ben's favourite band are American
found,
dance duo
one
the
victim
Chainsmokers,
on the ground.
and he's nicked
And
dozens
then they also
of
found
dope-smoking
another person
drivers
that had
since
a
drug
minor,
wipes
very
were
minor
first
injury
introduced
from a gunshot wound that grazed his back, his
Smoke
upper
cannabis.
back.
Have you smoked some today? Is he just in the
The
car?
man on the ground is struggling
You
to
just roll
breathe.
them on. I'm going to ask you to provide a sample
Officers
of
attempt
saliva.
first aid.
But I need to know if you've had substance, if you're over
They
the
didn't
prescribed
see
limit.
obvious
All right,
injury
now,
to
open your
him
mouth
at
for
that
me, if
point.
you do not mind.
So what they
Don't
did
bite
is
down,
they
Nick, it is
cut
plastic,
his
and it
shirt
will cause
off,
you issues if you bite
and
it.
then they
All
spotted
right?
a small amount of
Do the other
blood.
side.
He was shot once
Drink
in
driving,
the
there's
left
a level of
side,
cannabis you're allowed
near
in your
his
body
armpit.
before being over
Because
the
of the
limit
trauma
of driving.
from the gunshot,
This is to prevent
most
people
likely his
who are
lungs were filling
accidentally
with blood.
exposed to it from being prosecuted.
The body's trying very hard, is working
Should be driving the
overdrive
car
to
if
get
you're
air
smoking
in.
cannabis.
Just
yeah,
minute
no, listen,
or two
it's
after that,
like you
our
drive it.
ambulance crew
It's that simple.
arrived and was
You
able
can't
to
smoke
provide
and then
advanced
drive.
medical care.
It's in your system for a long period of time.
EMTs rushed the man to the hospital.
Whether or not he's over the limit,
The second
he
victim
has committed one
identifies
offence.
himself as
Possession
20-year-old
of
Shavoki
cannabis.
Bloodworth.
Have you got any
He
cannabis in the
was
car?
looked at by ambulance personnel on the scene
How much have you got on you?
and declined further treatment.
Is that all you've got?
Shavoki
Did you just
tells
come up for a
police he
smoke?
doesn't know the other victim.
Because you
At
give
the
us some
hospital,
drugs. I'm
the
just going to
man
search
fighting
your
for his
car.
life is soon
Okay,
identified
under
as
section 23 misuse
30-year-old
of
Walter
drugs.
Bell, a resident of South Carolina.
Martial artist and Bruce Lee fan Benny Boy's heard a fair few porcupines in his nearly 2 decades
Walter
on the
Bell
job.
III was born on
Even
July
though
12,
the driver claims the car is
1982.
cannabis-free, Ben decides to
Orangeburg,
give it
South
the once-over,
Carolina.
and bingo.
At a
One
young
pot
age,
of
Walter's parents separated,
There's
and
just
he
a bit
went to
more
live with his mother in
cannabis
New
that
York.
was taken from vehicle.
Walter was born in South Carolina, but
That
spent
one
most
comes up
of
as
his
medical
childhood and
cannabis.
growing up in Long
To be
Island.
honest, I've never seen it in the medical cannabis stuff
There,
before.
Walter was part of a large community of
Just a
family
little
and
bit in
friends
there.
that included 2 brothers.
While Baby Ben
4
waits for the
younger
result
sisters,
of the drug wipe, he
his
decides to
childhood
give the
best
driver
friend,
some words of
Latia.
wisdom.
Don't use
Everybody
cannabis.
was just
drive.
carefree,
Just like this
just running around having a good time.
Listen, we don't live in Canada.
Causing
We don't live in
destruction
Canada.
with the parents, you know.
We don't live in Canada.
Running the
We
parents
live here.
crazy.
You can drink. That's legal. But you still can't. But
Walter took
but you
care
still,
of his
what,
siblings.
Smoking and drive.
Walter
It's a
was a
silly law,
protector.
so
he felt like he
drinking
had to
is legal.
protect his sisters.
And then
The
drink
sisters
driving.
got
That's silly as
boyfriends,
well,
and he
isn't
had to
it?
interrogate
Right, so
them.
what do you think is right?
He's just
Why do you
like
think it's
so
right?
family oriented.
Does it not?
He cares
Are you
about
sure?
people and he put others before himself.
Apparently, he's a medical marvel who
In his
doesn't get
teenage
drowsy
years,
after
Walter's mom grew
psychoactive
concerned
drugs.
that
But
her son was
in this
headed down
case,
the wrong
that's not
path.
an issue because the drug
Walter
wipe
started getting
has come
into
back
a little bit of the
negative.
rougher lifestyle of Long Island, so his mom decided to send him back to South Carolina to live with his dad.
It's fair to say that's a bit of
Orangeburg,
a
South
shocker.
Carolina was a big change.
I was sure that we're going to
But
come back
not too
positive.
long after he
But the
moved,
test line, which
Walter
would,
welcomed a
through, which
familiar
would say
face to
whether
town.
he's under the influence or not.
My
It's
family
clearly not
was
there
gradually
on this
moving
drug test,
to
which
South Carolina
I'm
because
surprised
there
with,
was
'cause
land owned
I've had people
within
who
the family.
use cannabis in the morning
And
to come
so
back positive in
when
the
we
afternoon or in the
moved,
evening.
I boo-hoo cried.
And he's clearly
from
not
New York
really
to
with it. So what we'll do is now we'll deal with him for the
And I was
possession of
kind of
cannabis.
relieved
We'll take that from
when
him.
I got closer to South Carolina because that
but-
phone rang
Yeah, I'm
and it was
gobsmacked,
Walter
absolutely
calling me.
gobsmacked.
Even though
In
he's
South
not
Carolina,
guilty of drug
Walter and
driving,
Latia's
he's given a
lifelong
warning for
friendship
possession of cannabis.
blossomed into
Hopefully,
a
this will be
full-blown
enough for him
romance.
not to be caught in a similar situation
Walter was
in the
always there
future.
for her.
He's a
She
very
was
lucky
always
lad,
there for
and
him.
Ben gives him
He
some
was gonna
words of
marry
advice.
Tia.
I'm shocked there. I think you are as well, aren't you? a little
Walter's
bit?
home life
Be
was
honest.
rocky. During their senior
lucky
year of
little
high
man, you.
school, Walter and
Just have a
Latia
think about
came
what
to
we've said. I
depend
know
on
it
each
probably
other
won't
like
change
they
how you
never
feel about
had
it, but-
before.
He
It is,
had
mate,
nowhere
yeah.
to stay. I had
All
nowhere
right,
to
pal.
stay. Due
See you
to,
later.
you know, family issues.
Bye.
And we walked
Having
and
passed
walked
the wipe,
and walked
he's free to
throughout
go.
the nights.
But
we
it's a
went
long
into
drive
a
to the
football
promised
field
land
and
of
slept in the
Canada.
announcer's
He's
box.
been drug
for
tested by
weeks.
Ben just because he's produced some
So it
cannabis,
was
but
like
I think
him
we
and
just caught him at
Tia,
the right
like,
time
was
for
pretty
him not
much
to have
like
any,
just
or
living on
not
the
to show up
street.
on system. People
The
think
young
cannabis should
lovers
be
were on
whether it
their
should be
own.
decriminalised
Walter's
and
sister-in-law
legalised
tried
and
to
so on and
help.
so forth. But I know
Santana
certain
would
people in
sneak
countries are doing
food
it.
and
But
covers and
at
blankets
the moment,
and pillows.
it's still illegal. It's still illegal
things
to drive.
out the
And
window for us at
our
night.
main
And nobody
concern
knew we
is
was outside that window
that
but her.
if people are driving impaired, they're likely to cause injury to members of the public, and our job is to keep the
2003,
roads safe.
More trouble
So,
caught up
irrespective
with
of what we
Walter.
think about cannabis,
Walter
it's
got
still it's still in
into some
line.
things that
People
he
will
should
still
not
be stopped
have.
and dealt with accordingly.
He was accused of breaking
Coming up.
into homes and
It
stealing
looks like
things.
both near side tyres are flat.
21-year-old Walter
Honesty
was
is
arrested
the
and
best
charged
policy.
with second-degree burglary.
You alright, sir?
He pled guilty.
You got a drink?
Sentenced
Come and
to
join me.
15 years in
Because the
prison.
breathalyzer never lies.
I
breath.
cried and I cried and I
Pull my
cried.
seal around that end of
And
the
we
tube
were
and then blow
allowed
steadily
to
for me.
spend
Keep going,
some time
keep going,
together
keep going,
afterwards,
keep going.
back by the holding
That's it.
cells. And what me is the only thing I want you to do is live your life to whatever makes you happy. Just make sure that when I come home, I have a place to come home to.
When he was in prison, like, it was never a time that he
If the
didn't write,
Interceptors
he
had a
didn't
pound for
call,
every time they did
like,
this.
He always
Take a
kept in
deep breath,
contact.
place your lips around
Always.
the mouthpiece, and just blow into it until I
There
say
was a
stop,
lot
okay?
of ups and downs, a lot of me trying to find myself, a lot of me
Blow
trying to
into it until I
rebuild
tell you to
myself
stop.
back up.
Keep going, keep going, keep
In
going.
October
Thank you.
2010,
They'd be retired
after
and
almost
sitting
7
beat
years
someone.
behind bars,
Last
Walter
year,
was
over
granted
1,600
parole.
people were killed or seriously
By
injured due to
then,
drink
Latia
driving.
was a single mother to 3 young kids.
And
Walter
as
and
the people
Latia
who often
picked
have
up
to
where
deal with
they
the
left
aftermath,
off.
the Interceptors
When
understandably
he
felt
came
strong
home,
feelings
he
on the
loved the
subject.
kids. He took all of the
It's
kids.
disgusting,
home.
really,
They
that
was
people
his
think
kids.
it's all right in this day and age
When he
to
started
drink
bonding
and
with the
drive.
kids is when it was just like,
driving
okay,
about in a car,
well,
you're in a
I mean, it is what it is.
1.5
You can't
ton
change it.
killing machine, essentially. If you
The
can't control it
childhood
properly, you might
sweethearts
as well be
settled
walking
into
around
life
the streets
together,
with a
with
gun.
Walter taking on the role of stepdad.
It's just selfish.
By the summer of
They end
2012,
up getting banned
they had
and
plans
they
to
need
marry.
the license
But first, they needed a fresh
to work
start.
or whatever, then
He was
Tough.
unable to
No.
find work
It's a simple choice
because
to
of his
make.
record. He was just trying and just staying focused and not going back on the ways, prior ways
Interceptors
that
like
he was
Steve
doing, the
Oliver
things he
have
was
learned to
doing
spot
before he
drink
went to
drivers
jail.
by tiny
Like, he
telltale
was trying
signs.
to make a way and
Like
work, like
crawling along
actually
an
work.
empty road with the hazard lights on.
And then Walter hears about an opportunity
Chap is,
back in New York.
it comes to my attention, he's driving along, as you can see, with hazard warning lights
Walter's
on.
cousin
And it
offered
looks
to
like
help him
both
get a
near
job
side
at a
tyres are
recycling
flat.
center in Syracuse.
I think
I
it's
said,
better
well,
than
I don't know. I really don't want to go back to New York.
Steve adds his
And
blues
he
to the
looked me in
1 a.m.
my eyes
light
and he
show
said,
with no
"Tia,
effect.
I'll ride with you no matter what.
Wake up call,
Whatever decisions you make, I ride with you.
does the
on it. I
job,
want
and
you
the
to
Duke
ride
of
with me on
Hazzard
it.
pulls up.
That Friday, we packed up 3 laundry bags of clothes and shoes, packed the kids up,
Cricket
and
fan
got on the
Steve's
Greyhound.
been a copper for the best part of 2 decades.
The couple
And
stayed with
experience
friends
has
and
taught
in
him that
hotels
driving like
until they could
this,
find a place
at
of
this
their
time
own.
of the morning, means the driver's probably on a sticky
Around the
wicket.
same time, Latia delivered news that there was
alright, sir?
more change to come.
I
got a drink?
Well, then I
Come and
showed
join
him
me.
the pregnancy test. He was like, "Are you serious?"
Pop into the back of the car, mate.
He was so happy.
that's
I
first.
mean, within 5 minutes, he had
The
done
driver
called
doesn't
his
know if he's coming or
mom.
going.
He had
Odds
done
are,
called
he's
his
had more than the
sister.
one drink he's
He
hooked
called
up to.
his god sister. He was just so happy.
He was so
That was good.
excited that he was about to be a dad. Like, nobody couldn't take that moment from him.
Thankfully,
Like,
Steve
that
doesn't have to guess
moment
if
means the
about
world.
4 means that matey boy's over the limit. He has a machine to do that.
Been breathalyzed before,
Just 6 weeks after arriving in Syracuse,
So, deep breath.
Walter Bell is fighting
Pull
for
my
his
seal around that end of the tube and then blow it steadily.
You sit
forward for me. Deep breath. Connect.
Another man
Keep going.
is
Keep going.
working
Keep going.
longer.
Keep going.
He's raised by the
That's it.
same attack. He is still at the scene.
Steve was expecting
It's
high
lunchtime.
reading, but
Honestly,
interceptors
it's
Nick Priestley and
stories to
Bob
what
Hoyle
happened.
are hoping to sink their teeth
Legal
into a
limit
transit
sometimes.
van travelling
At
on
the moment,
false
there's
plates.
160.
Much.
Alright, mate, so
Mr.
currently
Bell
under arrest
was
for
saying he
suspicion of
didn't
driving.
know
Okay, so you don't have to say
Mr.
anything.
Bell
You may have
in his
offence if you don't
case.
mention
Just
when
like
you
just
just
somebody
say later line.
Transitioning grams in the
Evidence.
felt
white
something hit his
area.
back.
We'll get your second
believed
name.
to be on a clone plate,
House
so
of
possibly
Bradford.
a stolen
Search for
vehicle.
evidence.
So we're
Stick
gonna
you on the
try and head off
test machine.
general direction where it may head towards.
Drivers more than 3 Veteran
times.
interceptor
The other
Bob
thing you
has
wanna do is
just
start looking
celebrated
more
his
worried
silver
about
jubilee
especially
as a
for
police
cameras.
officer. He stops a fair few dodgy motors over those 25 years.
Yeah,
One of the people they called her and her daughter got a look at 2 males.
If you remember me once, I've got that vehicle now where Skulls Lane over.
Nick tries to block the ban on the off chance the driver gives him a slip knackered Severe with 2 flat tyres. Steve's going to make sure it's secure before heading back to the lane.
Gentlemen, thank for attention. Hazard warning lights on the near side tyres around.
The ban does a U-turn in front of Nick, who spins on a sixpence and gets back
roadside red sample, which is given a limit over 3 times. So he's under arrest on suspicion of drink driving. We'll take him down to the police station. We'll
50 miles per hour to look through
with the streets busy with cars and pedestrians, safety's got to be their #1 priority. The ban's no match for the Police 3 Series in terms of speed. Its driver's going to have to take some risks. The drink driver has what they call
still Skulls High Street, going through the back roads.
Now they have a
Still
homicide.
40, safe continue over.
They've got 2 options: box the ban in using multiple cars or get units ahead to throw a stinger on the road to take out later tyres. Driving over the prescribed reinforcement. Every available vehicle has 80 hours unsafe work.
Once it was coming Westfield Lane towards the traffic light, 85 Road Junction by Westfield Pub.
Driving
Standby speed is 506.
Drink drivers they're a danger on the road.
The van's run a red right in front of an oncoming truck.
Whether it's an over something,
Yeah,
both
so left,
side
left,
tyres
left
and
of the
flat.
traffic light,
The vehicles are speeding on the road and being driven into the state. It's been remarkable. However, as I find people
Supposed to be back out to Westfield Lane towards Whitehall.
I would imagine that it would be drink driving.
The fastest fuel stop outside Formula
I
1
always say
failed
that
to throw them
a
off.
huge amount of salt road, just a pinch of salt.
Sting lane wait
This
just
gentleman
ahead.
has to run
He's
an
dodged
exceptional
it.
amount.
Nick only just pulls out in time.
Will have known that he was well above the limit.
And the driver then mounts the curb to try and get the jump on his excess
People will drink and drive without a second thought for anybody else on the road.
Westfield Lane.
I told him I had my
towards
kids.
White Lane, towards White Estate over.
Detectives agreed to meet
40,
with the
safe continue over. Standby, right towards the town gate at White.
They showed up.
He hangs a left into an alley on a Monday.
One of them
Lisa DeSantis and Lewis Marshall just missing a pedestrian and a woman on a mobility scooter and pulls into an estate.
Yeah, it's going to be an abandoned off-road,
They've just been
White
rudely
Lane,
interrupted.
3 out on running over.
Oh my god, I can't even stop.
The driver and 2 passengers, all in tracksuits and trainers, have bailed. The van was still contained of a serious incident unfolding and they've legged it in a different direction. 25 miles northeast of Nottingham City Centre.
I believe it's the Griffin Road area.
When he gets to where
The
he's
runners have disappeared into the estate, just full of alleyways and highways.
And I was abandoned all that area before after my job.
And we're just looking for them now.
2 men have reportedly chased someone into a corner shop and are alleged to have a handgun. Lisa and Lewis are riding to the rescue in the unmarked, and they relish jobs like this.
Got around here somewhere.
Firearms cop Lewis is a sucker for a movie car chase. Bob and Nick return to the van to see if it reveals why they were so keen to escape. It's one of the many reasons Bob's flying shotgun.
Make sure you get some cereal for the kids.
Right, wait, Elise.
We've
got original number
plate. What have you got?
What?
Grab the back.
So
I've got pista as well.
He sounded
These 2
okay.
have the tools
and I
bags
thought
into the
he was
van. On jobs like this, banger shared by party criminals come to do their business in. It's today's business.
He said, yo, I've really been shot.
Also
And
en
then
route are Sergeant
told him
James
everything
Lenny
he
Bennett
did.
and Darren
He
Shaw.
paused, and now I'm taking him seriously because now I can tell something.
Contact with subjects due to BPI, time and place.
And so I started going into
negotiation
where
with
you
regular
at,
principles.
tell me who you are, what's going on,
We've got
where were you
what's
shot,
their
you know,
intake,
kind of
please.
back to the 1,000,001
Lenny's got his troops
Only thing
mobilised.
he's saying is that he couldn't do it.
Yeah, no problem. We're state 6.
Oh my
There was
God,
a
I
lot
can't
of risk,
breathe. I
however,
can't
for the
breathe.
Lisa and Lewis and
Then he
people on the
stops for a
pavements
minute,
and
then
on
he
the roads.
says, I love you and the kids and to take care of
They've
you.
come around that corner.
Yeah, I'm
Mobility
happy with
scheme.
that.
That's dangerous. So luckily,
The alleged victim is still hiding out of shop.
Getting to one
A member of shop staff recovered to the police pound and sold at an auction.
Just
Three runners
quickly,
still
are vehicles still anywhere out here that you
I
can
don't
see?
think now.
coming up.
When I was here, they had the community police help me.
An uninsured driver does the Wakefield Grand Prix. Aidy's in the money.
Did you hear it?
Load of cash here, big load of cash.
And Nick's all shook up.
Who's Elvis?
Now Lenny's
They
rocked up
want to
and
know
located the
exactly what
suspected
could have
victim.
caused this homicide. If he
What's
had
this
any
all
enemies
about?
or any known people in the area that would want to harm him.
A few days ago, I
Lucia makes them aware that they had literally just moved to
boyfriend.
So basically, you've met
We've
girls.
just really come
It's
here from
Tuesday
somebody else.
afternoon and interceptors
Before
Ady
that was
Fishley and Sophie Hawkswell are part of a team hunting down a suspect who's linked to a string of offences, including sexual assault.
I don't know where.
You know his name?
There's a male who's
Can you run that for me?
That's the
serious
only,
offence.
explanation that I could have
And
come
we
up
know he
with.
gets cited at a
As well as claiming he knows that two men chased him into the shop. They've been tipped off one of them was carrying a firearm. Units are moving into position to make sure he doesn't slip through the net.
being allocated
At this point, detectives have more questions than answers.
So he's looking down there to get as
really
quick
about
as quick as he can.
Do you know the details of his car that he's in?
Away from the job, Sergeant Sophie is a champion kickboxer. And just like in the ring, she knows that a quick strike on this job is the best way to get at the back. Lewis is doing a little detective work.
I seriously,
Syracuse
we want to get them
detectives
straight away.
entered the
As
residence
soon as we get locked up,
Walters
better than we'll be able to get him released from the offence. It's a case of getting to him before he knows that we're looking for him, really. So it probably will be a preemptive
Mr.
sort of
Bell
surprise.
lived with them
Quite
when
nice
he first
little
moved
bit.
up from
Getting out
South
of bed
England.
Christmas Day to a
It
lot of
appears
people.
to be the same type of motor that Lack told Lenny about. Aidy's an advanced driver and motorcycle fanatic with 20 years on the force. And his vast experience tells him the suspect will have a few motoring charges. Reports of a suspected firearm are taken deadly
They don't
seriously.
know if this car is insured or registered to somebody.
And
So
having run the Masters
and if it's
details,
him,
they now know
they
who
haven't said.
the registered owner is. The dynamic duo
He
soon
told
in
us that
position.
he
Can
had
you
shot
do
at just a couple
one
days
address,
before
please?
that, less than half
And
a
2
block
forward,
from
we're
the
just
key
on
to the
Scarlet
vehicle
Lane,
address,
picked
please.
up through back towards
and his
drive
friends
by
at
to
the
try and
end
ID
of
location.
And not long after, they get
Warrant capability.
Hey, you shouldn't hang
That
out.
firearm.
2-4 received that
Investigators consider
It's go, go, go. Because they're in the unmarked, Lisa and Lewis are dispatched to stage one of the addresses after the master.
Target.
They don't know if the target was Walter Bell or if it was Shabuki Bloodworth.
Call it intuition, call it man is known carry out a TVshow or tactical pursuit entertainment where 3 police cars box in a suspect vehicle.
Continuing towards Whelan Road, coming up behind you now.
Mr. Bloodworth and Mr. Bell were
And Aidy gets his toe down to
They
catch
would
up.
often hang
Yeah,
out
it's
together.
confirmed. It's
Investigators question
we are carrying behind you.
Yeah. Now,
Locked
investigators
and loaded, the firearms team roll out.
It's a right.
Lenny, behind the vehicle. Carefully now
One of
behind you.
Walter's
Come
friends
past it,
offers
be on
information
side.
about a man he says is at the
They're
scene.
in position. Now they just need the man in the motor could be armed and dangerous. So Lisa and Lewis want to wait for backup. It's time to team back.
Stop.
Well, he moved by his nickname, so he
Yeah, we're gonna have to-
police
we're gonna have to deal with it.
He's boxed in smarter than a game of Tetris to make a split-second decision. Seamless stop. They're summed up in
Unfortunately, he is home.
That's the one.
We're gonna have to deal with this.
Now the cops need to get off the main road and onto a quieter spot to grill the driver.
Mr. Bloodworth had been involved in the criminal justice system.
Job done.
He had been arrested for robbery.
The stop couldn't have gone better.
Probably
Now
now
there's a
turned
problem.
bad.
In Newark, Nottinghamshire,
No, I don't.
Is he saying it in him?
Yes, so if that's the
the
case.
firearms team have mobilised to hunt down 3 men who reportedly threatened someone, with the suspect saying he isn't the man wanted for the assault.
We have a very old picture. It's not a good
Having
image to
tracked
be able to
down
say
one of
whether
the
it is or whether it
suspects'
isn't.
cars
Without
into a
any
side
confirmation,
street,
no
Lisa and Lewis have
identification
spotted
of a dog,
action.
which is obviously going to raise our suspicions. So we're just
The
holding the
detectives he was
car.
talking
If there's
to,
any idea
and
that
this
we're
over the course of finally told him, he said, listen, the guy that
until we
you're
can confirm
standing
exactly what
next to,
we're
he did pass away.
The team soon finds
Mr.
something up
Bloodworth actually became emotional over this, broke down in tears.
Some documentation there.
Mr. Bloodworth told the detective that
That's
he
in the
was
name of our wanted person, isn't it?
He is a friend of
They've
mine.
also come across some paperwork in the wanted man's name.
He felt he was a father figure to him.
And as
So
it's suspected,
he gave
the
a little
car
bit more
isn't
information.
insured. Within seconds, the cavalry arrives.
Is that the case with the driving license?
He was the intended target of the shooting.
But Lewis's training puts him in total control.
Can we
That's off the
arrange a
text.
bullet for it, please? No insurance.
The bad guys, they don't
Just
care.
for the
They'll
rear.
take collateral damage. And oftentimes it's revenge,
It was
retaliation.
textbook stuff, and the man is swiftly
It's not the guy we're after. He's going to be walking home anyway, taking his car. But he's got enough money to get a taxi, hasn't he?
Walter's dying nurse.
It's been a very successful
Mr.
start.
Bloodworth even tells the
Not quite
detective
successful enough for Sergeant
victim,
Sophie,
Mr. Bell,
who unusually
says
for her was a
ideally,
bit slow after he
we could have
blocked,
more units
and didn't
at
get
that
to
time,
make
but
the
it was
arrest,
quite quick, it was
much
quite
to the
dynamic.
amusement.
We're really keen to deal with it there and then.
Dog handler Jen Else has drafted in one of the best noses in the business
Drawn
to
Lundy
sniff out the
parole,
report.
who just gotten out of state prison.
But she's drawn a blank, and with two suspects still on the loose, the job is far over. Despite his denials, the man arrested was the wanted suspect
Quincy
they
and
were
Drawn
after.
Lundy were known as
Lately,
looking
his
at
chopper has been scoping out the master driver's address, and it's just also given 8 points and £180 fine for driving without a license.
That sets off a bunch of bells in the detective's head because those brothers have a long rap sheet in the area.
Lisa and Lewis are first out of the box.
Just give the tactic again, sorry. Is it approaching detain?
No, overt challenge from cover, please. Overt challenge from cover.
Within hours of the fatal shooting of Walter
We're with you,
Bell,
Lisa.
West Yorkshire's patch contains some of the busiest motorways in the UK.
Yeah.
John Lundy actually
And it's
just
rare
got
that a day goes by without
Why
getting
did you
a
mail? Also
situation
has
on
multiple
these
arrests in the
fast-moving
area
and often
for misdemeanors and felonies, and was also
The two men
shot
are caught
himself back in
completely.
So we have the M62, the M1,
Stay where you are.
the
before they reach
M61,
onto the brothers.
and part of the A1.
Investigators attempt to track down the man
Quite a lot
Walter's
of
friend
motorway
said was
network
at the
was
center
covered.
of a
Quite a
neighborhood
vast
field.
area.
Suddenly, a third man
We're getting
appears.
busy from
20-year-old
5, 6 in
Jason
the morning,
Mason
right through until
where you
night
are.
time. And we're getting
Stop
calls
where you are.
to
The team have no idea if any of these blokes could be armed or not. So,
incidents from
takes charge.
collisions to
Any sort of
debris
movements?
to potential
Take the
suicide, people
units
wanting to
towards
jump
you.
off the bridges and things like
Listen
that.
to my
It's
colleague, you.
a very, very
Take one, we'll take the middle one after.
network that we cover.
It's almost a lost art,
You.
is that
You, let's just
one-on-one
put your hat
communication,
down.
try
You,
to
yes.
win over
I need
people.
you to
It's
walk
rush
slowly.
hour.
When I
Give
come
them
Nick
down.
Priestley is
Wait.
en route to
Wait.
Really
incidents on the
important
M62, which
Wait.
sounds
Those are
serious.
detectives that
Right,
are
walk slowly towards it.
detectives,
You,
people
walk
that
slowly
know how
towards
to do
it.
that and actually spend
in
the
the
time
exit and the
necessary
entrance
to
lane.
build a relationship.
And this car's going either side of her, so she don't want to get out.
Eventually,
The
Jason
suspect
managed to
appears
refute
compliant,
himself
but there's
Get
no
through.
room for complacency.
It's not ideal
Just
for
gonna
us to
call
play
this
car.
off. Cops on no sort of movement.
Two of him
Right.
being involved
Right.
in physical altercations with Quincy.
23-year veteran Nick is an advanced driver, and he'll need all his skills to thread away through to the
Weeks
street
leading up to
motorist.
the death of Mr. Bell.
Battling through
Listen
a
to my
public
voice.
motorway in rush hour is hard enough.
Investigators
Everyone knows she's in police cars, but as he's in an unmarked car,
Stop.
it's
Hands on your
even
head.
harder.
prior, the
Turn
Lundy
around.
family had filed a
Walk
police
backwards.
report.
Where's this footprint 27, mate?
Keep
The
walking. Come back.
Lundy's parents called in at their house for
Keep coming to
shot.
my voice.
The police respond,
Keep
let's do a
coming, keep
report,
coming,
they look for
keep coming.
By the time he
shelters.
gets to the junction,
Do what they
his
can to
colleagues are
investigate the
already
crime.
dealing with the situation.
No one was
Second
charged.
Nick heads off at the violent fella also
Investigators
comes
considered
quietly
that
and
Jason
W do the
Azevedo
same.
was responsible.
But Lisa's suspect
He
BMW is
described the
relishing his
three
moment
lanes
and
fight
back up the hard
that he
shoulder.
had with
Nick
Mr. Lundy. He kind of got the worst of it.
It's funny because
So
like
that
movies,
probably is what
like
led
big
to
mafia.
the
Kenny is like
shootings up
I
the
do-
Well, I've just
home.
stated that you've been detained in relation to an incident.
The belief that
Movie
Azevedo
or not,
was
the
responsible
cops want to
left
find
the
out
Lundy
whether the
brothers
suspects
first
are linked
revenge.
to the incident.
The house was shot up in the months leading up to Mr. Bell's death.
But there's still
So
no
they
sign
were
of potentially
probably
dangerous
going
manoeuvres,
to
apparently enough for this fella who doesn't try to make off.
You understand? Stop. Listen.
Investigators are still unsure how Walter and
Whilst one of the men is free to go, the other two are following their mate and the Mazda off to the Nick.
We're never going to tolerate anyone with any sort of firearm in Nottingham. And if you do, this is the response you're going to get. And we're going to find you and we're going to arrest you. And we're going to be taken to the streets.
I lost the way.
They have a really good witness who identifies
all three men were arrested on suspicion of firearm.
Quickly point them out of a photo.
Following a search of the main suspect's home, no weapons
but then
found. The man says he doesn't have his driving licence. The victim later withdrew his complaint and no further action was taken against the men in relation to the alleged attack. The driver claims he's lost.
Brothers
Apparently his
voluntarily
sat-nav sent him off the motorway.
interviewed the same day.
It's estimated there could be as many as 500,000 illegally owned guns circulating amongst the criminal underworld.
Fights with other people that hang
This is my job
area.
to make sure people
The
are safe.
firearms team, any given shift, throws up the possibility of coming across
he was
one.
not there. He was at
And how long have you had that
home with
car?
his mom watching television.
Almost
Ron says he's nowhere near Catherine during the shooting. He wasn't even
Drivers
on
told
the
it's Saturday night.
and that was
Lisa
something
and
that
Louis
could be
are
used
back
by
someone with a
because
far more
he
famous
had on an ankle bracelet.
Who's Elvis?
He's king of rock and roll.
Drama was released from New York prison.
I know Elvis is.
They've been dispatched to investigate a
Your
troubling
friend
ritual
Elvis.
from a suburb northwest of the city centre.
Detectives spoke with officials. They had said the near Catherine
A
Street.
member of the public claims they've spotted a discarded handgun on
Now they
the
have an
bridge.
eyewitness on scene saying that it was the
The
Lundy
friend of
brothers,
Elvis is
which is
actually
a
from
complete
Romania, not
contradiction
Graceland,
from what they
and by
found
the looks
out
of it,
she's
mine is right there. I call it the cop.
Investigators consider
Could I have two persons,
So
please?
it's
They're
potentially
looking
viable.
at
It's actually got
Yeah,
around in the
exchange
chamber.
bar.
someone else.
And I'm gonna need
So what we're doing now
details,
is we've got
please.
forensics here. We're going to forensically recover it.
To check out.
stating her son
It's
was
quite
with her
concerning
on
that
high.
we've actually got a viable
well, I need
firearm
to know who you
No,
are.
Mom, sometimes
loaded,
they
ready
could
to go.
As he's got no ID,
The wrong
kid,
person,
apparently
or,
no
you know, a
insurance,
child,
and driving
or
the
even a
car
youth,
short term
you know, a
nation
teenager.
in jail
The likelihood of
pretty
them pressing the trigger and hurting
So
themselves
the
is
police
just
are
quite
tonight,
high.
we're
So
joined
for that person to have rang in, it's quite grown up about it and let us know pretty quickly we've been able to get it off the streets and prevent anyone getting hurt with it.
See if he's
Grieving,
car.
pregnant,
And just see what if he's got
It
his
may
wallet.
look like an antique, but
I'm
this
not gonna
old
lie like
shooter's got
Everybody's
3
worried about me
rounds in
now
the chamber.
I'm in a
On
place
one of them,
where
a
I
piece
can't-
he spent.
I don't have these departments. I left Syracuse within 24 hours.
We've made it safe.
Have you got his wallet?
Made to the
And I
necessary
moved
swabs.
back to Long Island.
The wet bin. And it's now getting boxed
Stop
up.
speaking
We'll
to
send
me.
it to Norvis. It'll be tested there, see if there's any numbers linked to any crimes or anything like that. They come back to us next night.
And it would be people
It's a little bit warm.
portraying
It's a
the
deadly weapon safely off the streets.
Everybody keeps it.
And we suddenly find the warm wallet.
you know, I feel that it's quite
license.
We need to get
story
Despite
of what happened, so I'm scared.
This
I don't
is
trust
Training
anyone.
firearms and
I felt like they were
tasers.
trying to
But
figure
Lisa's
out where
real
I had
talents
been.
lie
So when I
behind
asked
the
you where
wheel.
your driving
And I
license
didn't want
was,
anyone to
She was all
know.
about explosive power and electrifying pace.
Jesus, what is wrong?
The driving license proves and it sounds like this shift's the man is going off with a bang. Also proves that the man
In the
isn't
months following the murder of Walter Miller,
I give that back. I'm
his
going to
friends
do some
and family
paperwork.
members are
Okay, for no
overwhelmed by
insurance.
the loss.
Blues on.
Okay.
Lisa puts her boot down.
3 months after his death,
Where's this clip?
Unfortunately, though, he is going to lose his power
All the way
and
to
will have to give his family
I gave birth January 29th,
Okay, so you can't
2013.
take it tonight. You don't have any insurance.
She was born
You can't give any insurance to me.
prematurely. She was born at 28
an area in Clifton. We've got a few cars making
When I looked
It's
at
finally dropped that he won't be driving home.
I looked at
White's
her
combo
and
van stolen from a pub car park has got
Reason
several
being, the
cops
first thing
across
that I
the
saw
city
when I looked at
racing
her,
to intercept.
she looked just like her dad did, laying in the back.
Can't reverse on the motorway.
Lisa
Can't
was
come
quick
backwards
out of
on
the traps.
motorway. One way only.
Failing stop.
He always talks
She's been
about when I
picked
have
to the
a
post.
girl. Her name's Baby
Where?
Becky.
You're in Romania.
Just one of
He
the
was
little girls.
barely a mile up ahead.
You're red.
She got
You're
behind
You
it.
can reverse 50 metres.
Right here.
Alright, good bright lights.
And having stuck on the blues, they follow him through a couple of reds. But this leg driving is decidedly green, Lacey. Like whoever's behind the wheel is rarely not there. We're a bit softer on dodgy drivers like him. So cops keep them on ice and wait for backup.
Romania doesn't necessarily have insurance for another police don't take your car.
Lisa and Lewis are closing in.
As another crime.
But there's obstacles at every turn. Found out
With his lawyers
in West Yorkshire
it would be in his best interest to
he and his family will be getting a taxi. Meanwhile, up ahead, the van has pulled off another desperate manoeuvre.
to his pending
I'm the bad guy.
So his lawyer and the district attorney
Risked it all and gone off-road. The friend of Elvis got a traffic offence report for no insurance.
Jason reveals that
Taken
he
against
was
him, so
there
momentarily
while
lost
Elvis
sight of the van.
tell
Later produced
exactly
insurance,
who committed
registered
the
that car in his name, and got it back. Spot some
Prosecutors make a deal.
We've got a guy that's
White
working
van
motorway.
embedded.
Let's get him off at motorway. Let's get him off at road. We don't want people like that on our roads, as simple as that. Now, whether he's used to driving like that in Romania.
Jason reveals that on October 19, 2012,
Within seconds,
he was
Lisa
standing on the
and
sidewalk
Lewis are
talking
on the
to
scene.
Walter
Some
Bell
laws
and
and
Shaboom
regulations, and I think even
when he was
in
approached by the
Romania,
Lundy brothers.
you don't reverse on motorway.
And it was at that point, shots rang.
Still to come. The high-speed Audi.
Yeah, you got through it.
The lad's man bag is the sting in its tail. He's got a whiff of something.
Stinger prongs. Managed to sting him as it come past.
Mr. Acevedo
And a guilty driver
that's probably
gives Ben a big surprise.
But Jason escaped.
He might have a
think you
slip on
are
him.
well like
Then
you.
again,
He fled the scene
not.
and
His
didn't know
memory
what
seems a bit dated.
until he saw it.
What are we getting nicked for? What are we actually getting nicked for? What?
Right, we believe you're involved in the vehicle that's just failed to stop for us, alright? So this time you're detained.
his background,
And likely
if you will,
you're going to be arrested,
basis
all
of
of you,
knowledge
for being
that he
part
finally
of that,
comes
alright?
through with.
One of his mates is also found to be
his
there are many different
credibility
ways to stop a dodgy motor.
His
Yeah, further
credibility
arrested
is
on
good.
suspicious possession.
With 400 traps and one stolen van recovered, eye in the sky guiding cars in, it's not a bad night's work for Lisa.
Still the A6
Hunky-dory.
So that's when they will go back to the informant and actually start to look at it.
They're obviously local
The
lads.
safest way to bring up a
Local police officers knew they were. So they've kind of stolen something on the doorstep. For whatever reason, I
onto the
don't
road to
know.
puncture tyres
And then they've
and bring a
decided
car
to not
to a
stop.
stop.
Looked at it.
And ultimately crashed just because of their lack of experience.
Possibly he wasn't looking at the actual time that the detective all
The
of a
alleged
sudden
driver of the van received no further action after the CCTV was reviewed and did not provide a clear enough image of who was behind the wheel.
Detectives immediately issue a warrant for
Two
driving
mates were arrested on suspicion of possession of a Class B drug.
Walter Bell.
One received a police caution and the other was
Authorities
handed a community resolution order.
also issued
Coming up,
what is your problem? He turns himself
argy-bargy for the knife crime team.
he was being interviewed, didn't just give a lot of information. He was arrested for murder in the second degree.
It's the Weast Lisa gets her hands dirty in the fight against knife crime.
The knife's in the bottom of the toilet. So I've done the decent thing and got it out.
He actually does call.
All in a day's work.
Within the day or two. Left an address that he lived. But the address was kind of filled as a fraud. So the U.S. Marshals Task Force in that area
Duncan's
started
controlled
to
these roads for nearly 20
knock on
years,
doors
and he's got
see
a
if they can
pretty
find
good
Mr.
idea of
Lundy.
where the pursuit's heading. From densely packed cities to rural communities, Nottinghamshire is a county of the streams.
Syracuse police finally have enough.
And there she blows. The traffic car chops.
A warrant is issued from the Lundy brothers' arrest.
Never know.
Quincy is first arrested, but then they discover
Policing
John
it,
Lundy
force
flees.
wide.
Duncan's a handy driver, but the Mondeo dog van is a bit of a beast. So he'll bring up the rear with police dog Tia.
Certainly as a
Driving
team, we
ditches.
need to be here in the city centre, or certainly in an inner city suburb one day, and then policing
The police up here in Syracuse
Ashfield area is another.
grandmas and parents'
Kind
stores.
of understanding what the issues are.
Those efforts.
This afternoon, Ken Tinley and Gaz
Mr. Lundy
from the
actually,
Knife Audi
within a few
are
days
testing their metal
walked
50 miles per hour in a heading into the centre of Wakefield.
We're going to be covering the entire Spencer area. We're looking for those who's arrested that are likely to have extra
back here to face the charges.
and or anything that might
Even though
indicate
it's
they're
quiet
involved
at
in
this time of
criminality.
the warning. No one wants to
When they finally get John Lenny in custody, he's sticking to the story that he was not anywhere near Kathy and that he only heard about the gunshots.
What's
But police
the
knew
suspect
there was
mounted
more.
runs a red light. It's a shifty-looking Astra down, but showing no signs of the hunches.
In October 2014. Tia attends the trial with Walter's mother.
All available units are heading into Wakefield. It's got more red flags than the Socialist Workers' Rally.
Why it happened.
Spin round.
Yes, previously failed to stop the police, and he's had a couple of off weapons by the look of it before credit card knife. He got stopped on trial with cocaine only last month, so it'd definitely be a really good start, I think.
Football fan Gav's biggest passion is fighting crime. For him, it's a beautiful game. The runaway driver seems happy to
Quincy
do that.
Lenny's attorney
Not
states
sure which way
that
it's gone at the
Quincy has nothing to do
With several
this
units
crime.
now
All he
scouring
was
the
at
area,
left his
not
mother,
long before
and his
the
mother
Astra
continues to corroborate the
resurfaces.
story. She takes the stand to testify for him, but Quincy himself doesn't take the stand.
The safest way
Ron,
to
on
stop
the
a
other
speeding
hand,
colleagues have got the
takes
man
the
detained
stand in his
nearby.
own defense.
It's predicting
He
he will
admits to the
road
criminal
to
history
take.
and admits
Bailing
to the
colleagues.
Circuits
Vino,
around
but
town
is
centre.
adamant about the
Like,
fact
just a matter
that
of waiting.
he had
We
nothing
may
to
have
do
more
with
than
the
just a
shooting and did
mobile
not
phone
shoot anyone.
offence with this lad.
This case,
Time to
was,
find out
somewhat
what the crack is.
circumstantial. We didn't have a murder weapon. They didn't have fingerprint evidence. They didn't have DNA evidence. There wasn't
the town
clear
and
Got
the
that
vets
in a minute,
roundabout.
video.
The team.
There
As
wasn't
my
a
colleagues
confession
explained to you, right? We know from your
I
records.
pictured myself as a
historically,
juror
weapons and
saying,
tools. Not
this
right now,
could go
you
either
can't,
way.
mate.
Prosecutors attempt to master their district
Where's the car keys, pal?
Dr. Stoppinger's
Cops
testimony.
want to search the man's
They have
car,
ways
but
to
it's locked.
follow
He
the
seems to
bullet
stings
path
are designed to let tyres down gradually.
Where's my key?
They are out of control. This pursuit's
The
coming
doctor
well slow
testified
and
that
is found what
it
appears to be a
appeared
small stash
that
of Class A's, but
the
there's still
round
no sign
striking
of the
Mr.
car
Bell came from a downward angle. After his testimony, the court
He's had some sort of struggle with him.
we escorted both cars from the
It's gone
courtroom
missing.
to a holding
Trying to find that
area
to search the
adjacent to
vehicle.
the courtroom.
Having searched him initially, he's got what I would say some crack cocaine in him.
Officer
Taken
checked
from
with
there.
his partner, listening as the brothers discussed their testimony.
Quincy
The man
Lenny
pulled up
said,
outside his job to which the
this
driver
document
surrendered
is
without a
very
struggle.
good for
Turns
us
out
for our
Tia,
case.
Dad's house.
And they then went on to say
Where is
from police.
So let me come with you in the house.
My partner and I, we look at each other kind of disbelief. We're like, you know,
It's been a
bloke
text record
based
stop.
basically
This
safe
fair
from
can't
each
be a house.
that they were
And now
shot
it's
take
and no one injured.
When the trial resumes,
one of the stinger prongs
tell prosecutors
nailed around the corners managed to sting it as it's come past.
hesitant.
So
You know,
that's controlled
law enforcement have to adopt.
divisional units dropped on this
And
vehicle. It's failed
we
to
did
stop.
testify
search
to
of
exactly what we heard.
and turns on Gav.
What is your problem?
Back out
It's
on October 25th,
Mate,
2014.
Put the stinger down. He wasn't going anywhere. He knew that.
You need to calm
Straight
down.
away, he pulled over, put
Ever
his
the
hand out
professional,
the window.
Gav remains ice cool.
Just do a breath test and a drug swipe.
And we're
When they
saying
finally get access, it turns out there's no spare. They're still not sure the man, the driver,
it wasn't just
18
justice
years
for
old
Walter Bell
and
and his
driving his
family.
mum's car.
It was
So while the himself gets ready for a trip to the neck and
violence,
potentially
right? We're always looking to try to
dangerous
stop the violence because this would
Ken's
have
decided
kept
to
going.
go
The only thing we
route
can
one.
see is he's got no driving license. No driving license, no insurance.
Sometimes in police work, the simple solutions can be the most
But it would
effective.
appear that he's driven like that, driven like an idiot, just because he had no license. Had he pulled over and stopped like the question to, it'd have been easier paperwork to the side of the road. His vehicle would have been recovered and he'd been on his way. Probably 15 minutes worth. But
P witness, Class A and B.
The driver was later convicted of dangerous driving and driving with no
found a
license
quantity
or
of deal bags, some containing white powder, which is likely to be cocaine. There's other white rocks as well, which is probably going to be the same sort of deals of cocaine.
It's a good result in the end. We got him. He didn't sell.
She was a single mom.
Was it good?
Determined to build a better life for herself and her children.
All right, ladies, it's time for bed.
She had a lot of aspirations.
She had started taking classes at a local community college.
It took a lot of courage on her part.
Only she'll never graduate.
They didn't know where their mom was.
And they saw the blood all over the floor.
Her daughters were in that house with their mother's body for at least 9 hours.
Was it the father of her children?
This was a difficult, violent relationship.
She tried to get a gun in my head.
Or was it the new man in her life?
They met at school.
They hit it off right away.
2 different suspects, but only one has a secret.
He's not taking his medications.
He heard voices.
July 19th, 2019. It's Friday evening in St. Paul, Minnesota, a city of 300,000 just across the Mississippi from Minneapolis.
St. Paul is considered the more tame part of the Twin Cities, where it's not as vibrant.
It's kind of the little sister of Minneapolis, but we're very proud of it here.
It's a little bit smaller, but in some ways it's more ethnically diverse.
You have more of a working class structure.
But that Friday evening, one hardworking St. Paul mom has inexplicably vanished. It's a little before 8 o'clock when Wanda Dixon gets a call from the daycare that looks after her friend Jessica Williams' youngest daughter.
Hello?
Hi, I'm trying to reach Jessica Williams. Do you happen to know where she is?
Wanda was her close friend, her old neighbor, and her emergency contact.
No. Is everything okay?
But Jessica hasn't picked up her daughter.
We close at 6 and it's already 7:45. We really need someone to come pick her up.
All right. I'll be right there.
Right away, Wanda was wondering, my goodness, what's going on? Something must be wrong. So Wanda volunteered to go over to the daycare and pick up Jessica's child.
Then she drove straight to Jessica's.
Jessica! Jessica, are you home?
Eventually, the 2 older daughters come to the door.
Girls, hey! Where's your mama?
They didn't know where their mom was. So Wanda walks into the house.
All right, I'll be right back.
Trying to find Jessica.
Jessica?
She was calling out for her. Jessica, where are you? Jessica, you in the house?
But when she reaches the kitchen, Wanda stops in her tracks.
Oh my God.
She sees blood splattered everywhere.
There was drag marks across that blood. Those drag marks work their way down the stairs to the basement.
Oh my God!
Jessica Williams always put her children first.
She was a wonderful mother, and there was nothing more important to her than her family.
Although she was little more than a child when she first became a mother.
Jessica had her first child at the age of just 18 with her high school sweetheart.
She had met a boy named Rodney Crawford a few years earlier, and the 2 of them had fallen head over heels in love.
She felt excitement, nervousness. There was a lot of emotions there.
The couple faced plenty of challenges, too.
If being teen parents wasn't already difficult, they had a daughter who was born deaf.
Oh, she did it! Oh, she did. Now you have to learn how to communicate. You have to find special services. She did that. Her daughter was thriving.
Jessica and Rodney went on to have 2 more daughters.
Jessica was a woman who could take on anything.
But raising 3 kids put a strain on the relationship.
They were financially struggling. They were having stresses.
After years of trying to make it work, Jessica and Rodney just didn't work out anymore.
They ended up splitting and going their separate ways.
But through every hardship, Jessica never stopped fighting for her children and herself.
All right, ladies.
Jessica never seemed to quit. She seemed to decide that I am going to do more. I'm not done here.
She got a job as a home health care aide, and she had a lot of aspirations.
The biggest of them involved her lifelong passion for music.
Everyone who knew Jessica knew that she loved music. So it was no surprise to anyone that in 2019, Jessica pursued a bachelor's degree at St. Paul College in music.
For Jessica, it was just one more challenge.
To go back to school when you have 3 kids and you are now in your late 20s, that's a really difficult thing to do.
It really does show a resilience that I think we don't see that much of.
But now, after a phone call claiming that Jessica has failed to pick up her youngest from daycare,
I'll be right there.
Jessica's friend Wanda has made a horrific discovery.
She went to the house to see what was wrong.
Jessica? Everything seems okay until she gets to the kitchen.
Jessica, where are you?
Where she sees a pool of blood on the floor and streaks of blood leading down to the basement stairs.
However, she doesn't follow the trail of blood.
Oh my God!
She doesn't know if there's somebody in the house.
Girls, you okay?
So she got the kids outside just for their safety. And then she called 911.
Police arrive on the scene within minutes and make their way inside.
It appears that someone had been dragged through the kitchen down into the basement.
And when they go downstairs, they find Jessica's body.
They had a murder on their hands.
After splitting with her high school sweetheart, Rodney Crawford, 27-year-old Jessica Williams was pursuing her dreams and raising 3 children as a single mother.
And she had started taking classes at a local community college.
Jessica was a single mother, so it took a lot of courage on her part.
Jessica was the type of young lady who was always trying to find that perfect balance in life. So she was determined to still make things right.
All right, I'll be right back.
But she would never get the chance.
Jessica? Jessica, where are you?
After her friend Wanda found a bloody scene in Jessica's kitchen,
Oh my God!
she called 911, and then police arrived to search the rest of the home.
And they go downstairs. That's when they find Jessica's body. Her t-shirt is wrapped over her head and her face.
And when they go to take the t-shirt off of her head, they see that she'd been shot in her neck and in her head.
When homicide detectives arrive on the scene, they determine that Jessica has been dead several hours.
Rigor mortis has already begun to set in.
They were able to see that this was not something that just happened.
Based on the blood, it appears that Jessica had been killed upstairs.
When the officers go upstairs, they find an empty gun case on the couch and 6 .22 caliber shell casings in the kitchen area.
As they looked around, they could see a trail where it appeared a body had been dragged along the kitchen to the basement.
It's unclear if by dragging her in the basement, the killer had hoped to cover their tracks.
But for whatever reason, the killer left the rest of the kitchen untouched.
Maybe they ran out of time, or just realized it was hopeless.
Still, the detectives believe there's at least one thing the killer did in order to cover their tracks.
Jessica's cell phone is not actually on the scene.
Which suggests that the killer may have been in contact with Jessica prior to the murder.
And it's not the only thing about the scene that suggests the killer was someone Jessica knew.
The fact that the killer covered Jessica's face showed an emotional reaction.
Leaving crime scene techs to process the house, the detectives canvass the concerned neighbors who have gathered outside.
None of the neighbors recall seeing anything out of the ordinary.
I did see a guy taking out the trash last night. I just assumed it was a boyfriend.
Several neighbors say they've seen the man around the house before.
He was tall, slender, he had dreadlocks.
Neighbors weren't sure where the man had gone, but they had an idea how he got away.
Neighbors told the police that Jessica's SUV wasn't in the driveway.
Had the mysterious man with dreadlocks killed Jessica and made off with her SUV?
And called up.
The police put out a bolo and they made a request. Whoever is driving that vehicle, stop them.
Then, after issuing the bolo, the detectives returned to the homicide unit to take statements from Jessica's daughters and her friend, Wanda Dixon.
One of the questions that people would be asking is, if both girls were in the house, why didn't they hear the gunshots? The fact is that a .22 is not that loud. Dropping a book on the floor is about the same audio level as that.
And the 10-year-old is deaf.
Well, just let me talk to these girls real quick, okay? If she could kind of translate for her then. What do you want me to tell? Just grab a seat right up there, be perfect.
When the detective questioned the two girls, they knew something was wrong, but they really had no idea what had happened.
Did your mom wait to get up this morning?
No, she's gone.
Where was she?
I don't know.
The girls say they spent most of the day just playing in their room.
They're not sure what's going on and they're waiting for an adult to show up.
After talking to the girls, the detectives turned to Jessica's friend Wanda, who's still distraught over the news that Jessica is dead.
So I'll give you a second here to decompress, because clearly you've had to keep all this in for the kids. I can only imagine how difficult this is.
Once Wanda regains her composure, the detectives start off by asking how she knew Jessica.
I was her next door neighbor and a very good friend, and the kids got bigger.
Wanda also explains how she was Jessica's emergency contact for things like the kids' daycare.
Which turns the questions towards the kid's father, Rodney Crawford.
Who can you tell me about him? Mr. Wonderful. That's right. I was thinking him. When they first moved in, he seemed very nice.
But according to Wanda, her assessment of Rodney had eventually changed.
She started to see their relationship deteriorate.
I remember one time she had me money at my door and she called cops. She put a gun on my dad and was gonna kill me.
Detectives investigating the murder of Jessica Williams have learned from her friend Wanda Dixon that the mother of three had a turbulent relationship with her ex, Rodney Crawford.
There is a lot of tension and potential violence in that relationship with the father of her children.
There's allegations of abuse.
He said he had a gun to my head. He also had a knife and he was gonna kill her.
Wanda, call the cops.
Wanda says she had called 911, but Rodney left before the police arrived.
They interviewed her and pictures and everything like that.
Wanda says that Jessica didn't press charges against Rodney, but the relationship was never the same.
And Jessica realized at that point, I don't need this. This isn't good for my kids. Rodney and I, we need to split up.
Jessica got a restraining order against him. He was really not allowed to come anywhere near her.
However, Wanda also says that in addition to the restraining order, Jessica had also bought a gun.
Jessica, somewhat understandably, felt like she needed a gun for her own protection.
Considering that the detectives found an empty gun case in the house, they start to consider that Jessica might have been killed with her own gun.
Question is, was it Rodney who pulled the trigger?
This was a violent relationship. The fact that there was an order for protection in place shows his ability to be threatening. There was allegations that Rodney put a gun to her head. All of that started to check boxes for the police.
However, Rodney isn't the only person the detectives need to consider.
A neighbor said she saw a young man there before.
The police got the description from the neighbors of a tall, thin man with dreadlocks, and that doesn't sound like Rodney.
But the detectives don't know his name until they ask Wanda if anyone other than Rodney had reason to hurt Jessica.
But it's not him. My next suspicion would be the Sebastian guy. And who is the Sebastian guy?
According to Wanda, Sebastian is Jessica's new boyfriend.
How do you know his name's Sebastian? That's what the girls told me. Do you have any idea how long they were together? Maybe 3-4 months.
Jessica had described it as casual, but Wanda suspected that it was actually a lot more serious than Jessica was letting on.
You don't know anything other than that? No.
Wanda doesn't know his last name or what he looks like.
But the detectives suspect that Sebastian is the man with the dreadlocks that the neighbors say that they saw at Jessica's the night before the murder.
However, before the detectives can track him down, they get a call from dispatch.
Jessica's SUV has been located.
It was a few blocks away from Jessica's home.
The doors were locked. The key was not in it. And they touched the hood of the car and it was cool to the touch. So they could tell it had been parked there for quite some time.
So you have this locked vehicle, no one inside, and the police didn't want to act prematurely. So they sat back and watched that vehicle for a period of time to see if anybody would go over to it to get in and drive it.
But the vehicle appears abandoned.
No one got inside. No one approached the vehicle.
And they did tow it down for evidence.
They send the car to be processed by forensic technicians.
While forensics gets to work on Jessica's car, detectives try to get a last name for her boyfriend.
They want to talk to Jessica's family to see if they can get any more information about the Sebastian guy.
Detectives also contact Rodney, who agrees to come in for an interview.
When Rodney arrives to the station, he's surprisingly inconsolable.
I'm like, are you okay, baby? Yeah, Daddy, I'm okay. Mama dead. There's a lot of blood on the floor of the kitchen.
He feels a ton of guilt.
Detectives investigating Jessica Williams' murder have just sat down with Rodney Crawford, Jessica's ex, and the prime suspect in her murder.
There was a history of domestic violence in the relationship.
Wanda, call the cops.
Eventually, she had to get a restraining order.
He tried to kill me.
But in the interview room, Jessica's ex doesn't act like a killer.
He cannot believe that the mother of his children is dead.
I'm so sorry, sir.
But are his tears genuine, or an attempt to divert suspicion?
Detectives question whether or not it's sincere.
Put on the spot, Rodney doesn't deny that he and Jessica had their problems.
He admits that they broke up when Jessica was pregnant with their youngest child because he had gotten another woman pregnant.
Rodney even admits that there was violence between them.
However, he denies having anything to do with the murder.
He says he hasn't even seen Jessica in months.
Jessica put a restraining order against him, so he hasn't had any communication with Jessica or his daughters.
That's when I got lost all contact with her.
Okay. So the last domestic case was the last time you were with her. Did you communicate with her at all as far as kid stuff at all, anything like that?
I couldn't.
Next, the detectives move on to Rodney's whereabouts for when the murder likely occurred.
Can you tell us where you were? We just want to get a timeline of everything.
Rodney says he was at his new girlfriend's house.
You were there 30 minutes until now.
Yeah, I had her niece, I had my son. While she went to work.
You were there the whole time?
The detectives also ask Rodney about Jessica's new boyfriend, Sebastian.
Do you know who your boyfriend is?
He hasn't heard anything about this new guy.
I couldn't talk to her, so I had to block her everything. So I went on social media and I went on nothing.
But he also suggests that the new boyfriend is behind Jessica's murder.
He says that had he not been unfaithful, she wouldn't have left him, she wouldn't be deceased.
The detectives aren't entirely sure they believe him, but for the moment, they play along.
You gotta not blame yourself here, pal. You can't control other people's actions.
Then, to test if Rodney's grief is sincere, the detectives step out of the room for a few minutes.
But inside the room, the tape is still rolling.
When detectives leave Rodney in the interview room, they're observing him.
The whole time, Rodney was just crying.
He is overwhelmed with sadness, feelings of guilt and shame about what he could have done differently.
He's the best actor on the planet, or this guy really is broken up.
Still, the detectives do follow up with Rodney's current girlfriend to see if her account matches his.
She says, yes, that's correct. He was there taking care of the kids. I came home from work, and then we were both home the rest of the evening together.
At that point, Rodney was officially cleared as a suspect.
So the question becomes, okay, who did it?
To answer that question, the detectives focus their attention on finding Jessica's new boyfriend, Sebastian.
They only have a first name, but the detectives hope that once they get Jessica's cell phone records, they can confirm his identity.
But before they receive the records, Jessica's sister Ebony arrives at the station.
Ebony tells them that yes, Jessica did tell her about this new guy she'd been dating.
They went to St. Paul Cottage together.
He was also pursuing a degree in music.
Although according to Jessica's sister, his name isn't Sebastian.
His name was Sebastian. Nope, I just know him as Sebastian.
That's why the kids had it all Sebastian, Shabazz, that's kind of cool, but it was Shabazz.
Can you describe him for me? He's African-American with long dreads. He's about 6 feet. Slim.
This is likely who the neighbors saw at Jessica's house.
But Ebony says Shabazz isn't Jessica's boyfriend. He's her ex.
She told me she broke up with him.
What, baby, what?
According to her sister Ebony, murder victim Jessica Williams had recently broken up with her boyfriend, Shabazz.
Ebony said, I think that's the guy you want to talk to. He's trouble.
Did she mention any problems with any other boyfriends?
Ebony says that Jessica and Shabazz met at the community college they both attended.
They were both non-traditional older students, so they were kind of drawn towards each other.
But Jessica's sister says she was less than thrilled with Shabazz.
She did have some reservations about their relationship.
There was something about him that just felt off to her.
He's kind of crazy because he talks for himself and stuff. He's kind of schizo.
Ebony says she was glad when Jessica told her she and Shabazz had split up.
The Thursday prior to her death, Ebony asked about Shabazz, and Jessica explained that they had broken up recently, and Shabazz was no longer living there.
But according to Ebony, Shabazz wasn't happy about it.
He was angry about, them breaking up and stuff.
She's certain that this guy is the person responsible for murdering her sister.
After interviewing Jessica's sister, the investigators redouble their efforts to find Shabazz.
The police looked through Jessica's social media, and they find someone in her friends list named Shabazz Miller.
They find out his full name is Shaki Shabazz Miller Brantley.
He is tall, thin, with dreads. He's exactly the description that they had been given.
After a bit more digging, the detectives are able to track down an address for where Shabazz lives with his mother.
Found the car, we gotta go.
Please have a seat.
Although when the detectives arrive at the apartment complex, the manager seems surprised to learn that he's staying there.
Oh no, he better not be living here. I had so many issues.
Shabazz has caused so many issues with the neighbors, within the complex. There's been complaints. Shabazz's behavior is so unacceptable that they've told his mother that he absolutely can't live with her.
She's the only one on the lease and the only one who can live in the apartment.
However, the apartment manager admits it's possible Shabazz has been sneaking in and out.
He's not going to be coming through the front door because he doesn't want anyone to know he's there.
Luckily, there was surveillance on both entrances.
Can we take a look at some footage?
Yeah, sure. I'll pull it up now.
They see Shabazz at the back entrance, and the landlord says, "That's him."
100% sure. That is Shabazz.
It's time-stamped for Friday at noon.
Can we get a copy of this?
Yeah, sure.
Which fits the timeline of the murder.
Since Jessica did take her youngest daughter to daycare on Friday, the detectives believe that the murder occurred sometime mid-morning.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Convinced they've found Jessica's killer, the detectives establish surveillance outside the apartment.
Because they don't see him exit again, they're making the assumption that he's probably still inside of his mother's apartment.
Then they secure an arrest warrant and prepare to take Shabazz into custody.
They had to use a SWAT team to go in because they don't know his state of mind. They don't know if he's going to come out shooting.
Sheriff's off. Get out, get out, get out, get out!
Since it wasn't at the scene, he may still have the murder weapon in his possession.
But all their precautions prove unnecessary.
They were able to arrest Shabazz without incident.
They bring him down to the station. His mother also comes down to the station so that she can give her own statement.
But first, the detectives conduct a thorough search of the apartment.
They find a .22 caliber handgun in a kitchen drawer.
They found Jessica's cell phone, and they also found a pair of men's sneakers that were bloody.
After searching the apartment, the detectives head back to the station and sit down with Shabazz's mother.
Understandably, she wants to know what's going on.
Well, the reason why I have you here is that Jessica was found dead.
Shabazz's mother confirms that Shabazz had been living with Jessica until a few days ago.
He came through the door with a big bag of clothes, and he He said, she put me out. That's all he said. She put me out.
But the detectives are probably thinking he didn't tell his mother the whole truth.
Has he ever harmed anybody or hurt anybody that you're aware of?
He's been in jail. He's on probation.
What's he on probation for?
When he did like attempted robbery like some years ago, he's been on probation for like 3-4 years.
But Shabaz's mother says her son's problems didn't end when he got out of jail.
She discloses that Shabazz has a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia.
She thought he was off his meds.
Do you think he could ever harm somebody like that?
It's possible. If he go crazy out of his mind.
Here we go, baby.
Get your stuff and go.
While talking with his mother, detectives investigating the murder of Jessica Williams have learned that her ex-boyfriend, Shabazz Miller Brantley, has been diagnosed with schizophrenia.
She says he's not taking his medications and he's not in his right mind. He could potentially kill someone.
Do you think he could ever harm Jessica?
I don't know.
But she does know that he was upset after the breakup.
Did he say anything to you about Jessica?
He said, I don't understand why she did me the way she did.
She asked him what happened and what was going on, what was wrong.
He told me we got into an argument the other day.
There's been a history of his mental health causing issues in his relationship, so she wasn't surprised to hear this.
She didn't know that there's a crime associated with this yet, but she figures he did something stupid.
And whatever it was, clearly bothered him.
Shabazz's behavior was really odd. He was pacing around, he seemed agitated, he was mumbling to himself.
He was like mumbling. You know.
She didn't know if these were just symptoms of his schizophrenia because he hadn't been taking his medication, or if something more serious had happened.
What did he do for?
I can't get into that, really.
After talking to his mother, the detectives move on to Shabazz.
I think you know why you're down here. You know why you're down here. We just want to get to the bottom of everything.
Detectives tell Shabazz that they're investigating Jessica's murder, and they suspect that he's involved.
I feel like you're a decent guy that you want to get things off your chest.
Shabazz tells detectives that, yes, Jessica did put him out.
Why does she want to put you out? I don't know.
He thought Jessica simply wanted to see other people.
There had been an argument between him and Jessica, that they had gotten into a fight, but he says that argument ended and he left the house.
You can go. I am done with you.
I walked out on
But the detectives know that Shabazz isn't telling them the whole story.
Detectives then reveal to Shabazz that they found a gun in his apartment.
We've already found your apartment, okay?
And Shabazz slowly starts breaking down and his story starts changing.
Shabazz tells detectives that he and Jessica got into an argument.
I am done with you.
Tripping out. Just tripping.
According to Shabazz, the argument turned threatening.
Yeah, and she had a bag on her. She was saying she gonna shoot me. She had a hair in her bag.
Okay.
It's a little bag she had.
All right.
She was carrying. She was saying she gonna shoot me.
He claims that he was afraid for his safety.
You better get your stuff and go.
Whoa. She was telling me she would kill me.
He was fearful that Jessica was about to shoot him.
He tells detectives that he heard voices telling him, kill her first.
If I don't kill her first, she gonna kill me.
So Shabazz says he'd pulled his own gun.
He guesses he fired it 4 or 5 times.
You're saying that it was self-defense? You thought that she had a gun?
Yeah.
And he says it's only after he shot her that he realized it wasn't true.
He looked inside of the bag that she was holding for the gun and saw that there was not a second gun.
So I'm like, what the fuck? No, then you talk about you gonna kill me and all this. I just started crying and felt bad.
But not bad enough to call the police.
I tried to carry her down the stairs so the kids won't see it.
Shabazz says that he carried her body down the stairs, but it's pretty clear from the blood stains on the floor that she wasn't carried. Her body was dragged.
But he swears he never meant to kill her.
He said, the voices told me I had to kill her. It was the voices.
I've been hearing a lot of sure.
And when Shabazz goes on trial for murder, the entire case hinges on his mental state.
His defense team used mental health as his defense.
He stuck with this mental health claim that he was hearing voices.
He can say, look, I was off my meds and crazy.
The prosecution argues it wasn't voices that made him shoot Jessica.
Jessica simply didn't want to be with him anymore, and he didn't want to break up.
What?
Just get your stuff and go, Shabazz.
Tell me what to do.
He raised the gun and started firing at Jessica.
If he was truly defending himself, one shot would have ended the threat. The fact he continued to fire says that there was an emotional component to his actions. He had recently been dumped and thought she was dating other men, and clearly this was a rage-type shooting.
Which scenario will the jury believe?
He was found guilty of second-degree murder.
They did not believe his defenses for either self-defense or a mental health defense.
He was sentenced to 18 years in prison with 3.5 years credit for time served.
To Jessica's family, it's a small price to pay.
Minnesota only requires you to serve 2/3 of your sentence. Then you're eligible for parole. So he could conceivably be eligible for parole in 12 years. He gets credit for 3. So he'll be out in just a few years.
Shabazz will get the chance for a better future than he took from Jessica and her children.
When Shabazz gets out of prison, he gets to live his life all over again. What does Jessica get? What do her kids get? Nothing.
There are a lot of destroyed lives in this case. Jessica's first and foremost. But her 3 children who will never really know their mom or what their mom was capable of.
But it could have been prevented.
It's important to make sure that mental health resources are accessible.
It's wrong.
It's like a battery. So with the battery, opposites attract.
It appeared that the common denominator was the violence.
But once you start the ride, you're in it until the end.
You letting somebody entice you to do something that you probably didn't want to do, you're messed up.
Her desire to please her man resulted in loss of life, damage, and fear and chaos.
And if you don't buckle up, someone will get hurt. March 24th, 2019, Columbus, Georgia. Located 90 minutes south of Atlanta, Columbus is a place where residents can taste suburbia without skipping the thrills of city life.
Living in Columbus, Georgia is like living in your own hometown, you know, just growing up around the same people that you've been around all your life.
Life has changed since I grew up here. It was a very quaint, quiet town, but it's gotten very, very bad here in Columbus.
On Sunday morning around 1:30 a.m., a disturbing call comes into 911 dispatch.
Police receive a call about a shooting on Winston Road at Park Place Apartments.
Despite Columbus having its fair share of rough neighborhoods, Winston Road is considered a safe haven in the city.
The area of Winston Road is a fairly upscale area, so it would be fairly unusual for a crime, let alone a gunshot victim, to be reported in this area. Law enforcement was able to respond pretty rapidly.
At the scene, bystanders point first responders to a truck that appears abandoned.
After the police arrived, they observed a deceased man in a pickup truck. It appears that the victim had only been shot once, but that the wound was fatal. The shot had to be from close range based on the burn marking. Police only found one shell casing at the scene, and it was believed that the weapon used was from a 9mm pistol.
As detectives begin to process the scene, they are able to establish the victim's identity.
The crime unit at the scene was able to pull the victim's wallet from his pants and determined that the deceased man is 30-year-old Philip Whitaker.
Luckily for detectives, it appeared that the victim's cell phone was also still in the vehicle. This is an important clue because it might provide detectives with the idea of who Philip was talking to or who he was with prior to the murder. So that phone is collected and sent for analyzing.
Now detectives are wondering who wanted Philip dead.
As detectives start to question people at the scene, they learned that around 1 a.m., witnesses heard shouting from outside. It sounded like two men were arguing over money. One man was wearing a mask, and one witness saw the masked man pull out a gun and shoot Philip. The masked man then jumped into a gold Buick that was driven by a woman, and then they fled the scene.
Perhaps this was an armed robbery that had gone terribly wrong.
Philip had no money in his wallet, so investigators feel that whoever did this may have stolen the money that was in his wallet.
Because Philip was found inside the truck, detectives believe that he likely wasn't killed instantly by the gunshot wound, and that perhaps he entered the vehicle to drive away. But he was unable to, and then died shortly after.
Detectives contact Philip Whitaker's family to inform them of the terrible tragedy. Upon hearing the news, Philip's cousin, Gabrielle Harris, drives to the location of where Philip's body was discovered. She identifies his body.
That was a very emotional day for me because he was my favorite cousin. We didn't know how or what happened, and we was going to get to the bottom of that, but at that time we was just trying to inform other family members of what happened.
Gabrielle then calls her mom, Sabrina.
She had reached out and she called us and she said, "Mom," and she was crying real hard, and I'm like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And she said, "They just found Philip dead," and I was like, "What?"
Philip's girlfriend, Amanda Frazier, finds out about his murder later that morning.
6, 7 o'clock in the morning, my sister came banging on my door. She was like, "Oh, your baby daddy is, he gone, he dead." She just kept saying, I was like, "Who?" So I went on social media and I just seen a bunch of R.I.P. Philip, R.I.P. Migo, all that, whatever. So that's how I knew it was real.
Philip and Amanda had an on-again, off-again relationship throughout the years. But that all changed in 2011 when Amanda became pregnant with his baby.
Philip was nonchalant. He didn't talk. He didn't really open up. It took a lot for me to get something, just a small conversation out of Philip. He started talking more, let me in more. He was happy to be a daddy. I ain't never seen a side of him like that before, so that's what I mean when I say he opened up more.
When Philip was 22 years old, Amanda gave birth to their daughter, Sabrina.
He was so happy when he first seen Sabrina.
Being a father changed Philip.
He did everything he can for her, or he went over and beyond for her. I can say that. And I was excited for him.
Philip wanted to give his daughter the perfect life.
But when see him, I think was he had took me to the store and bought me a whole lot of stuff.
He was aspiring to one day build a house and, just, be a family man.
But now, just hours after Philip has been brutally murdered, police are left wondering why.
Detectives on the scene start kicking the tires on theories about what happened. And then they do a background check in their own system about Philip, just to see if he is known by police. They learn that Philip has a criminal record for selling marijuana, so this becomes a launching pad for police. They feel that Philip might be the victim of a drug deal gone bad.
And because Philip sold marijuana, he was known to carry cash.
Growing up, he always had money. Well, he only sold marijuana because, that's a way to feed the family. He didn't believe in, working a 9-to-5, quick money. He felt like that was the quickest way to, feed his family.
Philip's family is frustrated by the lack of communication from the Columbus Police Department.
No one reached out to nobody. So I think I'm just going to have to take it upon myself to reach out to them and see what they're going to do. But we need to get on the ball because this don't make sense. It's like, don't nobody know nothing.
But unbeknownst to Philip's family, detectives already have a key suspect in the murder. At the police station, forensic investigators have processed Philip's cell for information.
When police analyze his cell phone, they find a very important clue. In Philip's messages, there's a correspondence from a woman named Sheree Threadgill. The message is sent around midnight, which is 90 minutes before the police think the murder occurred. And it looks as if Sheree was looking to buy marijuana from Philip.
Was Sheree responsible for Philip's murder, or was something else in play?
When we had posted the messages that Philip and her had, we had posted it on Facebook or whatever like that. And as soon as we posted that, it's like people started sharing them. And here we got 2-3 people from this side of town saying, oh, that same person tried me like that. She tried me like that. Another girl, she tried me. It was saying that she was going around doing a couple of people, trying to get a couple of people like that.
The death of local resident Philip Whitaker has left his family burdened by heartache. But just one day after his murder, information surfaces about a suspect who may be involved in the shooting.
In any investigation, you follow the evidence. So in this case, police have Philip's cell phone. And in that phone was a message from Sheree Threadgill. Police know that Sheree had messaged Philip 90 minutes prior to his murder to buy weed. So naturally, she becomes the main suspect in the case.
Police want to know what kind of relationship did Philip have with Sheree. According to the information they find on his phone, it seemed as if Sheree and Philip were more than acquaintances.
Philip had an on and off relationship with Amanda, who was the mother of his children. In his off moments, he would entertain the company of other women. One of these women happened to be Sheree Threadgill.
On the night of Philip's murder, Sheree messaged Philip several times. The messages were flirty, and she seemed determined to meet Philip to buy weed.
He would have not had pulled up to meet nobody past midnight like that. So that's why I was like, maybe they had
Police decide to check with Philip's family to see if there was a sexual relationship between the two.
If they went together, the family never met her.
as far as I know.
Detectives aren't sure if Philip was romantically involved with Sheree or if she was simply a customer. Luckily, Philip's family has already started their own investigation into the matter.
So Philip lives in a community that doesn't trust the police, and people certainly don't openly speak to them. So his family takes matters into their own hands, and in a way, they act as private investigators. One of his family members manages to get Sheree Threadgill's phone number.
Philip's cousin niece Sheely calls Sheree on the phone.
Somehow, my homegirl, she got the number to the girl, and we gave her a call. She was stumbling over words. She was backpedaling, trying to explain what happened. Philip got out the car to make the sale. And when he did that, supposedly when he threw the marijuana in her car, somebody with a ski mask came and told him to give it up. And when he told Philip to give it up, Philip was just like, it's in her car.
Sheree says that the masked man shot Philip, and she was forced to drive away to save herself.
She sounded nervous. She then said, I don't want to get in trouble for buying weed. And at that point, we like, this is a whole homicide. They not stunned what you bought. So she was just like, I don't want nobody to think that I had nothing to do with it. We didn't say that. We asked him what happened.
Philip's family tell police about the strange interaction with Sheree on the phone.
In Sheree's own words, a masked man shot Philip. And police know that Sheree had arranged the meeting to buy weed. So police want to know about Sheree. Who is she? What is her background? Who does she run with? And because it's 2019, they get a lot of this information from her social media account.
After detectives scour her social media accounts, they learn that Sheree is 20 years old and has a young child.
Sheree was a young mom, and it appeared that the father wasn't in the picture to raise the young child.
We don't know much about Sheree as a mother. Based on her social media photos, it appears that she was happy to be a mom. She had pictures of smiling while pregnant and smiling while holding a baby. She appeared happy.
Police also learn that Sheree is in a relationship with an 18-year-old man named Jalen Benton.
Sheree, she met Jalen. She was a few years his senior. However, his charisma and charm drew her in like a moth to a flame.
Jalen was raised primarily by his uncle, who worked at the military base in town. Seemed to be an ordinary kid from what they can tell. Didn't get into much trouble, was good looking.
Jalen and Sheree have only been dating a few months, but the relationship seemed serious.
Jalen's ego was likely inflated due to Sheree being an older woman and all of the attention that she was willing to give him. Sheree positioned herself to be inseparable. As time went on, if you saw one, you would see the other.
But it seems as if money became an issue in their relationship.
They don't have wealthy families, they don't have good jobs. So like in any relationship, a lack of stable income becomes a roadblock in their romantic connection.
As police continue to get information on Sheree and Jalen, they learn that neither one has a substantial criminal record.
Police do a background check on Sheree. It comes back clean. And the same goes for Jalen, and nothing stands out. He has no lengthy criminal history, nothing to the level of committing a homicide.
But looks can be deceiving. Police have to locate Sheree and Jalen and question them.
Police get a known address for Sheree. It's her mom's house in town, not too far from where Philip was murdered. And they go there, and Sheree's mom is there. And the mom comes right out and says, Sheree and Jalen have skipped town, which sounds a bunch of alarms, because if they had nothing to do with this, why would they leave?
When detectives check DMV records, they realize that a gold sedan is registered in Sheree's name. It's the same type of vehicle that witnesses saw at the crime scene when Philip was murdered.
Detectives don't know to what extent Sheree is involved in Philip's murder, but they know she's involved. They put an APB out on that vehicle because they have the tag number. Now the detectives want to locate her as fast as possible. And more importantly, they want to learn more about Jalen to see if he's involved as well.
There is no telling where the couple could be.
From a police perspective, you have to center the entire investigation around these two individuals because this is all they have to go on.
Then, March 25th, just one day after Philip Whitaker was killed, an armed robbery in nearby Phoenix City, Alabama, raises concerns.
There was some chatter of an incident that occurred. An individual had actually been shot, but they survived the shooting.
The suspects were seen driving a gold Buick. Cameras were able to catch the tags on this Buick, and this sets off all kinds of alarms.
Investigators have a murder in one state and a shooting in another, but are these two events related? It's been less than 24 hours since Philip Whitaker was murdered, and police are on the lookout for a couple of lovers who might have murder on the mind. 18-year-old Jalen Benton and 21-year-old Sheree Threadgill are now believed to be involved in a robbery in Alabama.
There's a river that separates Columbus and Phoenix City. They suspected them to have armed robbery Waffle House there, where shots were actually fired inside the business.
The armed robbers were described as a black male and female couple between the ages of 18 and 25 years old. According to the reports, the two perpetrators tried to rob a woman inside the restaurant.
They were trying to get her purse, and she fought. And in the process of that, she was shot in the leg.
One of the perpetrators pulled out a pink pistol, which of course is a very unique color for a weapon, especially one that's being used in a crime.
Detectives working the scene in Phoenix City radio all surrounding police departments and tell them to be on the lookout for an armed and dangerous couple driving a gold Buick.
Communication between police departments is so important today. Within seconds, multiple jurisdictions were communicating to each other about these individuals. And as a result, some connections were made.
It was believed because the tag on the vehicle and the vehicle make and model and everything was starting to add up.
It seems as if Jalen and Sheree's crime spree is escalating with each passing hour.
One of the tactics police lean on here is help from the public.
News about Sheree and Jalen's crime spree hits the local news.
They know Sheree and Jalen are armed and extremely dangerous. So it's all hands on deck at this point.
Philip Whitaker's family is in a state of shock when they learn about the additional crimes.
We were just seeing stuff on Facebook that, Facebook crime, they was posting things that the crimes that they was committing along the way. Why are y'all doing this? That's the question that I still have to this day. Why did y'all do this?
They were on the run and they needed money to survive, which makes them more dangerous. There's no telling what they'll do next.
On March 25, 2019, at approximately 7:37 p.m., the Marion Police Department is dispatched to a restaurant.
Marion, Mississippi is about 4 hours west of Columbus. It's essentially on the border of Alabama and Mississippi.
According to the reports, a brazen armed robbery had just been committed by a masked couple.
The investigators immediately called my cell phone to let me know that a armed robbery of a business had just occurred.
When Officer Ratliff starts his investigation, one key witness statement stands out. Like in the restaurant robbery, a gold sedan is at the center of the crime.
The car had not quite pulled up to the window yet. And once the employee opens the window because the car is coming, he produces 2 handguns and jumps through the window. They were all scared to death. He came through with guns drawn, pointed at them.
And there is one more key piece of evidence in the case. The perp was brandishing a pink pistol. Officer Ratliff checks in with surrounding police departments to see if any other robberies were committed by an assailant with a pink 9mm.
Hey, what kind of gun, what color was the gun that he used in the armed robberies? Every single one of them said pink. It was just a telltale signs that, yeah, we got our guy.
When it was all said and done, the entire robbery lasted only a few minutes, and no one was hurt.
If you are so desperate for money that you are willing to jump through a drive-through window with a gun, there's really no telling how far you will go.
Police are still unable to apprehend Sheree and Jalen, but based on their robberies, they suspect the couple is heading west.
The first crime was the murder of Philip Whitaker in Columbus, Georgia. Then they head west and do a quick stop in Phoenix City, Alabama. And then they hit Marion, which is 4 hours west of Columbus. So these two are certainly establishing a pattern. They weren't changing their car. They weren't changing the weapons they were using. These were clearly inexperienced criminals.
Police departments throughout Mississippi are alerted to be on the lookout for a gold sedan. For now, police can only play the waiting game. 2 hours west of Meridian is the peaceful town of Vicksburg, Mississippi.
We are right on the Mississippi River on I-20, right at the Louisiana-Mississippi line. The sheriff's office and the police department work together, hand in hand, to try to keep crime down. Most of our crime is property crime.
But their quiet town is about to be turned upside down. At 9:47 p.m., while on patrol, Officer Keys spots a gold sedan driving on Highway 61.
I knew it was the suspect vehicle from the armed robberies.
Officer Keys initiates a stop near a gas station.
They pull over on the shoulder between the two entrances. I pull in behind them off the road. I knew that they were armed, and that's the reason I waited on backup when I first stopped them, just to make sure that we had more numbers than they did.
Then, Officer Keys' life changes forever. After the murder of Philip Whitaker, police in Vicksburg, Mississippi believe they have their suspects cornered.
We had them out of our community before they hurt somebody here. If they're willing to jump through a fast food restaurant with a gun, they're pretty much willing to do anything.
Officer Keys knows the suspects are armed and dangerous, so he waits for backup. But Sheree and Jalen aren't in the mood to wait. They exit the car and Jalen begins shooting at Officer Keys.
I was able to see the muzzle flash, see everything. Have no idea where that round went to. The Circle K was full of people and vehicles at the time.
Officer Keys takes cover behind his squad car.
Despite getting shot at, Deputy Keys does not return fire to ensure the safety of the civilians in the area.
Jalen and Sheree run on foot. They aren't going down without a fight.
Jalen and Sheree are desperate at this moment. There's really nothing else to do other than run. So what do? They commandeer a vehicle and they take hostages.
A mother is picking her daughter up from work.
She had pulled up to pick up her daughter from work, and the next thing she knew, there was people jumping in her vehicle. A gun was pointed at the back of her head.
Sheree and Jalen take off in the stolen vehicle with one hostage driving and the other in the front seat.
Now we have two hostages, so a lot of our playbook is taken from us. We can't ram the vehicle because we've got two suspects as well as at least two hostages in the car.
Officer Keys stays in hot pursuit of the stolen vehicle.
I jumped ahead of the pursuit with a spike strip in an attempt to flatten the tires on the vehicle in a safe manner and get the vehicle to stop.
I believe they were trying to get across the bridge to Louisiana, as we are right there.
But in a shocking turn of events, the stolen vehicle avoids the spike strip by making a U-turn on the highway. Then, to everyone's surprise, the vehicle comes to a complete stop.
The mom threw the vehicle in park and they jumped out. The sheriff stopped with them and confirmed that yes, these are the only two hostages and that nobody else except for the two suspects are in the vehicle.
Officer Martin Pace, who was also in pursuit, is tasked with getting information from the surviving hostages.
She was able to give us good information very quickly that I was able to relay to the other units. She was able to tell us who was in what position, who had the gun,
According to the hostage, Sheree is driving the vehicle, and Jalen is in the front passenger seat with a loaded gun. With the hostages now safe, Officer Keys attempts to end the chase once and for all.
I aimed at the driver's side tire and tried to shoot it out.
After an hour-long pursuit, the stolen vehicle comes to a complete stop. But is the fight over?
The suspects were about to come out and engage us in gunfire.
Jalen Benton and Sheree Threadgill seem to be at the end of their road.
I remember coming out, moving to the passenger side of my vehicle. The sheriff was to my right, and I was drawn down and dead on the passenger door.
Officer Keys knows anything can happen. The doors open, and Officer Keys steadies his aim.
The female driver come out first. She come out unarmed, and the officers to my left started talking to her, calling her out, taking her into custody.
The two peacefully exit the vehicle after causing so much pandemonium throughout multiple states.
The saga is over. Sheree and Jalen are finally in police custody.
He went in the back of my patrol car. He really didn't say anything. He was just there. I'd been shot at earlier that night. After everything settled, after my adrenaline dump, there on scene after taking them in custody and everything was settled down, I was there, but I wasn't there.
As for Philip Whitaker's family, they are relieved to hear that Sheree and Jalen have been apprehended.
The detective reached out and let us know that they was captured, and this is how they was captured.
Bit of information, maybe just a little bit, that only them two knew, and Sheree knew that Benton had told us everything. She came out and started telling us everything.
Sheree tells detectives how the murder of Philip Whitaker went down.
She was going to meet him, buy some marijuana. She stated that this was someone that she knew and that Jalen wanted to rob him. She said that she told him that he typically didn't have money on him, just marijuana, but Jalen still wanted to rob him, so she facilitated the buy. She said that he gave her the marijuana and Jalen came up with the firearm, and Jalen told him, give me all you got, give me all you got. And she said that this individual had already went back to the truck and that Jalen just shot him. And then came and got in the vehicle and they took off.
The confession doesn't end with the murder of Philip Whitaker. Sheree starts to confess to crimes that the authorities don't even know about.
She admitted to everything. The murder in Columbus, all of the armed robberies, which I think it was about 10 of them, that they committed from Georgia to Brandon, Mississippi.
Soon after Sheree comes clean, Jalen confesses as well.
He confessed to each individual crime. That alone was important to itself, but he had specific details that, were not fraud or forged. Like, yeah, we went here at this time. We went here this day. We did this, drove here, and stopped at these places where we robbed.
Sheree may have been guilty of standing by her man, but Jalen clearly was capable of violence.
It sounds like to me it was a lot of manipulation in the beginning. He may have portrayed an image that he had more than what he possibly had, which kind of captivated her and kept her attention. And so once she had drawn her in with the manipulation, she was kind of stuck based off the intimacy that had occurred between them. And as time went on, she had tunnel vision. And with the tunnel vision, you don't look at what's right, you don't look at what's wrong. Typically, you just continue to move on just to satisfy the needs of our partner.
There is just one question that remains. Can authorities prove Sheree and Jalen's guilt in a court of law?
There were some serious concerns about Sheree's trial. She seemed to be the outlier because while she made a confession, she was also distancing herself from Jalen, and her depiction of their relationship together was starting to change.
Sheree Threadgill and Jalen Benton went on a 48-hour crime spree that took the life of Philip Whitaker and terrorized multiple communities in 3 different states.
Sheree's desire for affection and to please her man resulted in loss of life, damage, and fear and chaos to many citizens, all for the love of her man.
When you look at the entire sequence of events, it becomes clear, in my opinion, that they worked in tandem together. Whether it was by pulling the trigger or setting up the deal, they both worked together to leave, to get away from the situation.
As prosecutors prepare to take their case to court, officials wonder if the toxic couple will turn on one another.
Sheree had a chance to distance herself from Jalen. He was, after all, the trigger man and the one doing the robberies. But would she do it, or would she stick with the man she loves?
They were looking for her for answers as to what happened with this individual that had been shot and killed. And that's one of the reasons why they left, is because she was in fear.
But prosecutors aren't buying that Sheree feared for her life.
We know that Jalen was the one that would
It was more of him, I believe. Like I said, love make you do crazy things.
In a last-ditch effort to avoid a criminal trial, prosecutors offer both Sheree and Jalen plea deals.
You just have to gather all the information possible. You have to make sure that all the officers involved have provided detailed reports. Make sure that the district attorney, the prosecutors are involved in every step of the way.
In the 11th hour, Sheree and Jalen both decide to take responsibility for their actions in court.
It appeared that they were going to enter a plea of guilty.
As part of their plea deal, they have to admit their guilt in the court of law. They admit to killing Philip Whitaker, they admit to shooting the woman at the Waffle House, and they admit to all of the robberies in every state.
When he was here being arraigned on the state charges, he asked if I was going to be present, and I was. I was at every hearing.
In federal court, Sheree receives 19 years in federal prison for aiding and abetting 2 business robberies and the use of firearms to facilitate the robberies. Jalen receives 30 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release for carjacking 2 business robberies and using a firearm to commit each offense.
And once they were charged, they become federal inmates. They both pled guilty in federal court and were both sentenced in federal court. So I was there for when they pled guilty and admitted to everything they did. And I was also there when they were both sentenced.
The verdict provides some comfort to Philip Whitaker's family, but it doesn't bring him back.
How can you do this? Like, why would you take this man away from his kids and his future child that was born the next day? Like, why would you take him away from his family? Like, how could you do that? Should have took somebody's life for nothing.
What was going through your mind when you felt that you had the audacity to take someone's life?
In a shocking turn of events, officials in Columbus, Georgia decide not to press charges against Sheree and Jalen for murder. The decision hits Philip's family hard.
I honestly feel like the family would be at more peace knowing that that's what they locked up for. They locked up for something that they did in Mississippi. What about here? I was very hurt because it's like, as the family, we wanted justice, and we still want justice.
Philip's family won't stop fighting for him.
I know some family members is trying hard to get them back here, so that they can serve time for the wrongdoing that they did to our cousin.
Life is better with Sheree Threadgill and Jalen Benton off the streets.
I think I heard somebody earlier say this modern day Bonnie and Clyde, and I don't like to say that because it makes it sound like it's some romantic adventure. And they were cold-blooded. They were cold-blooded. They'd already killed one person. There's no doubt in my mind that they would have killed others.
The memories of Philip Whitaker will last forever.
He was a family man. He was loved by all his family, of course, and of course his kids.
He was a good daddy. A great daddy.
Thrills and excitement can only take love so far before the ride eventually ends. When love causes someone to fall
years old and she just vanishes.
I don't think it's a coincidence she went missing the same day that this People's Court episode aired.
You're practically sunburnt now from being out in the elements looking for her.
Somebody knows something. We want to find Michelle. This is questions about my daughter. Michelle is still missing.
Do you think we're close to an arrest?
Orlando, Florida, November 17th, 2011. Just days before Thanksgiving. Michelle Parker's fight with her ex-fiancé airs on TVs across the country.
And he shouldn't have put his hands on me, and he shouldn't have put his hands on me prior. He shouldn't have left me 3 or 4 times over the past year and a half that we've been together.
Her family wasn't prepared for what would happen later that day.
Michelle Parker is like a lot of women that you see around here in Orlando. She had these big dreams, she had these big plans, and she was making steps to make her dreams come true.
Michelle was just a hardworking single mother of 3. She had 2 jobs. She would bartend at night.
She also had a tanning business, which she advertised with decals on her Hummer. She was also going to cosmetology school. She wanted to make a better life for herself and also her 3 kids.
She worked hard. She loved her kids. She was an awesome mom. Those kids are so well taken care of.
If you look at her photos, you can tell that cosmetology was important to her. She was always made up.
These are photos of Michelle Parker from the Michelle Parker Missing Person Facebook page.
Always had her nails done, who always had her hair done right.
She was in school to get the license and the certification to one day work for her mother and the salon.
She's like a magnet. She just draws people in. She's a beautiful, beautiful person.
Michelle Parker turned heads, and she turned Dale Smith's head. And he was good looking, she was good looking.
Michelle Parker and Dale Smith had twins together and were even engaged at one point. Michelle was also taking care of her 11-year-old son from a previous relationship.
They met, they fell in love, and then the worst happened.
Michelle Parker and Dale Smith, her fiance, they appeared on this episode of The People's Court.
It was one of those relationships that went sour, and it went south pretty quickly.
They were fighting over a $5,000 engagement ring. She threw the ring off a hotel balcony during an argument, and he was suing her to get some compensation for it.
He's just outside the door, maybe about a foot. And then he said that he wanted his ring. So I took it off, and I threw it at him.
Then when the engagement was over, he wanted the ring back, which of course he couldn't get, so he wanted the money that the ring was worth.
The judge on the People's Court decided to split the cost, so Michelle Parker would have to pay about $2,500 to cover half the cost of that very expensive diamond ring. The People's Court episode was filmed over the summer, but it didn't air until November, and the family didn't even know when it was airing. So really, it was a surprise to everyone that this episode was on TV.
Vaughn Parker, Michelle's mom, told me specifically that it was not likely Michelle's idea to go on that episode. She felt somewhat humiliated afterwards.
And Michelle's mom explained that for the first time to ABC News.
It was just so that she wouldn't have to pay for that engagement ring. She said, that was the most humiliating experience of my life. I don't even ever want to see it.
So this case might not have stood out, but then it did. Because the day it was airing is the day that Michelle Parker disappeared. So it was November 17th, 2011. And the People's Court was going to air at 2 o'clock local time in Orlando. But Michelle Parker was out and about, and the last time she was seen was at 2:30 at her mom's salon. So it doesn't look like she actually watched the show.
And then that's the last time the mother would see her.
So at 3:30 that afternoon, Michelle's 11-year-old son gets home from school, and normally Michelle was there, but she wasn't at the house. So he did what he knew to do, which was to call his grandmother and say, hey, where's my mom?
Michelle's mom told ABC News about her grandson's concern.
Her son called and said, is mom at the salon? We're like, no, honey, she should be taking a nap. She goes, well, I haven't seen her since I got home from school.
It was really out of the routine.
So at 4:26 that afternoon, Michelle's brother texts her to say, where are you?
Michelle's brother gets this odd, cryptic text from her with one word, just one word, Waterford.
Now that could be a reference to Waterford Lakes, which is a large neighborhood.
Waterford Lakes is an area of Orlando that has a big shopping center, has a movie theater, has restaurants. So when you say Waterford here in Orlando, everybody thinks of that shopping center.
It's about 30 minutes from where Michelle's home was, which is just bizarre because she was not known to hang out near Waterford.
Now, exactly what she meant by it, did she send that text? All these are unanswered questions.
And even more odd is that Michelle's family said it wasn't like her to send a one-word text.
She was more expressive. She would tell you what she's doing. So it does seem strange that the last text that she sent was just a one-word thing. Michelle was a bartender at a place called The Barn, which is a really busy, popular country western bar. And she was supposed to work at 7:30, but she never showed up.
All day long, Michelle Parker keeps missing these appointments.
By now, the family was really concerned. So Michelle's sister called the cops and reported her missing.
Normally, you have to wait about 24 hours before the police start looking into a missing persons case. And her sister felt strongly enough that the police needed to be investigating immediately.
Now it's 8 o'clock, she's still not around. A few minutes later, her phone is powered off. There's no explanation as to why she would ever do that.
The battery could have run out, it could have been destroyed. No one knows.
Her cell phone was powered down in kind of a central location that wasn't really near her house, near her work, near any place that she'd been.
This is the cell phone tower where Michelle's phone last pinged. Even in a voicemail to her father a day before she disappeared, Michelle appeared to be fine. Her father shared the message exclusively with the Today Show.
Hey, Dad. This is Michelle. Call me when you have lunch or you have break or at the end of your day, okay? I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
She was in good tone and glad to see us, and we were going to go eat some oysters, but she didn't even tell me about the show was going to be aired.
For her to go missing on the very day that she was going to be on the People's Court and make her national TV debut, that would be quite a coincidence for her to vanish on that day. And it really feels like somebody must have known that this was coming. Because why this day? Why not the day before or the day after?
Michelle's family was very concerned, and it was evident in her interview with the Today Show.
The first time in my life, I have been climbing under trains. I have been going through ditches and dumpsters, praying that she's not there.
The family wasn't wasting any time. They knew that when Michelle Parker was missing for just a few hours that something may be wrong. So they went to the police right away, and they really went to work quickly trying to launch search parties, calling friends and putting up flyers.
My wife's out there, everybody's searching, and let's hope we find her and bring her home.
There were literally thousands of flyers. These were posted everywhere. She basically became a household name here in the Central Florida area.
Michelle vanished right near Thanksgiving. So instead of celebrating, her family was having to deal with these searches. And when I would talk to Michelle's mother, Yvonne, they were terrified.
This isn't a wallet. This isn't just a purse. This is my baby girl. We need to find her and we need help.
They were dredging lakes. They were looking under bushes. They were looking for a body. And that's the worst thing that a mother can go through.
I'm scared. I'm shaken. I want to find Michelle alive, not dead.
There were a lot of questions about what could have happened. You know, Michelle's mother actually said maybe it was a carjacking.
Michelle's mom explained that theory on the Today Show and appealed to her abductor.
I know in my heart of heart that she's been carjacked, that the people saw an expensive car and a girl who looks like she has money, and I know they've made a mistake.
She had a very distinctive big car. It was a Hummer. Her logo splashed across the back windshield of glow. That was advertising her tanning business.
There were local TV anchors that were questioning, could she have just run off?
There was speculation that maybe she was seeing someone else and they had run off together.
Michelle Parker started dating someone just a few weeks before her disappearance. This boyfriend, Nathan Mitchell, was really new to the whole Parker family.
He was even seen looking for her. He would be crying. He was on the news. He was desperate to get her back as well. Police soon determined that Nathan Mitchell wasn't involved with her disappearance.
Michelle worked at one of the most popular bars in Sanford, Florida. It's called The Barn. People get weird infatuations with bartenders oftentimes. So there was speculation that maybe there was a patron at that bar who followed her, who was stalking her, who could have possibly kidnapped her. No one knows.
But there was somewhere else Michelle went that caught investigators' attention. Up next, investigators make a big discovery. And
new video of Michelle Parker just hours before she goes missing.
Video reveals a disturbing clue.
Michelle Parker, a beautiful mom of three, vanishes on the very day that the People's Court airs that shows her and her ex-fiancé fighting over a ring.
These are photos of Michelle Parker from the Michelle Parker Missing Person Facebook page.
Police, family members don't know where she is, and attention is pointing to a lot of people who may be responsible.
Here's what we know. Michelle was last seen at 2:30 at her mom's salon. At 3:30, Michelle wasn't home when her 11-year-old son arrived after school. At 4:26, Michelle's brother received a text from her with one word, Waterford. And at 7:30, Michelle missed her bartending shift. But there was somewhere else Michelle went that caught investigators' attention. This is the police report Orlando Police Department provided us. Much of it has been redacted, but the report lists her last known location as her ex-fiancé Dale Smith's house.
At 3:18 p.m., her Hummer was seen going into Dale Smith's condo community. There were surveillance videos everywhere, so we do have a little clip of her parking her car there at his house.
We know that she dropped the twins off at that house, but what happened after is unknown. We don't really see her Hummer leaving his community because of the way the cameras are set up, so it does leave some mystery about when she may have left that neighborhood.
The way that neighborhood works is, a lot of people have asked, why don't they have video of the vehicle leaving if it came in? Well, it's a loop around. So when you drive in, you would drive up to the house, and then it just loops back around to leave out of the gate. So that's why the vehicle is actually not seen leaving, because normally she just went around the loop.
There's so many cameras and so much surveillance in this neighborhood. So it's really strange that all we see is this few-second clip of her vehicle. There may be more. The cops may have it. They may not have released it.
In the first days of the search, you really didn't see much of Dale Smith because he was home taking care of the couple's twins and her other 11-year-old child. So he was not out as much going through the community, putting up flyers or wearing the T-shirts trying to find her.
And Michelle's mom defended Dale Smith on Good Morning America, saying he was cooperating with authorities.
The police have investigated, they've talked to him, they've searched everything he owns, he's let them in his home, they have his computers, he's with my twin babies right now. my grandbabies and his children, which is where he needs to be. He is crying every time I talk to him on the phone.
They took his cell phones and his computers, and he was a victim as much as everybody else.
The only thing we've heard from Smith's family is on the first day of the search, when his dad vouched for his son.
He ain't got nothing to do with that. He was here the whole time she was supposed to be gone.
Then investigators make a big discovery.
That distinctive Hummer that Michelle Parker drove was found the day after she was reported missing. It was found the other side of town, not really near where she lived.
Michelle's Hummer was found in the parking lot of the Walden Palms apartments.
The apartment complex wasn't the type of place where you would expect to see a Hummer. You know, it's kind of run down, it's in a rougher area. Nobody thought that Michelle had any business over on that side of town.
On that Hummer, for years, there was a decal that basically was promoting that tanning business.
The decal, and it said Glow, also would have had her phone number on it. That was gone. So it was strange. It looked like somebody had tried to make it a little bit less identifiable.
Her vehicle was found near a mall in basically South Orlando, which is obviously a county away. We're talking 20, 25 miles away. And that was just a miss.
If you look at a map where Michelle spent her time on her last day before she disappeared, she was zigzagging back and forth, which makes it really hard to understand exactly what she was doing or give us a place to look.
And there was something else that would add to the suspicion.
New video of Michelle Parker just hours before she goes missing.
At noon on the day that she disappeared, Michelle stopped at a KFC, and we have video of her making her order through the drive-thru, and it's the last known video that we have that actually shows her clearly. But it also shows a really interesting clue.
Now watch as the vehicle drives away. What do we see? Did you see that? The decals on the side of her truck, so distinct.
In the back of that Hummer, the decal that said Glow with her phone number was still there. So sometime between 12 o'clock and the time that the vehicle was found, that decal was peeled off. But it was definitely there when Michelle was driving.
Just because that vehicle has been found, we still want people to try to remember it. Remember that Hummer. It had those glow stickers on there.
Well, removing the decal is really an obvious way to try to make sure this doesn't look like Michelle Parker's Hummer. It's a large, very big car, very flashy. You can recognize it going through the neighborhood. And really taking this glow decal off the back was a way of trying to perhaps hide evidence.
This whole thing doesn't feel like a regular carjacking that happened at random. This feels like something targeted where they decided that they needed to cover their tracks by peeling that decal off.
I know that it had to have been someone that knew her personally, no doubt in my mind.
Inside the vehicle, they still found her purse, her wallet, her cash, her other belongings, which really led police to think this wasn't a carjacking.
But Michelle's iPhone wasn't found in her Hummer, and her family knew that may be the key to tracking her down.
We need that iPhone. Don't touch it. Just call us.
It's mainly black with a little bit of pink and white Hurley writing.
And what about that cryptic text Michelle's brother received from her number with one word? Waterford. Waterford was way on the other side of town from where Michelle's Hummer was found. Did she send the text? Or did someone else? Coming up, police make a stunning announcement.
There's all these microphones set out.
I knew something big was going to happen.
Best mom ever. I was real proud of her. I told her that a week before she went missing, how proud I am of her. She's done everything right.
Michelle Parker, a mom of 3 and a popular bartender, is on the People's Court battling her ex-fiancé Dale Smith over a luxury engagement ring. But the day the show aired would also be the same day she mysteriously vanished. Her family said there was no way she would just abandon her kids.
9 days after Michelle disappeared, and 2 days after Thanksgiving, the cops descended on Dale Smith's parents' home. And this wasn't just a little polite door knock. This was multiple vehicles, multiple officers, that it was chaos.
Yesterday, as seen in the cell phone video, SWAT members raided Dale Smith Sr.'s Orange County home in the search for the missing mom.
We do know, according to some neighbors, that some chemical was used, whether it was a tear gas or a pepper spray. But police raided this home to try to seize evidence. They thought it was so important to do this over the Thanksgiving holiday.
We don't know what they were looking for or what they found.
Late today, a man believed to be the father of Michelle Parker's ex-fiancée refused to answer any questions.
Sir, can we talk to you for a moment? Can we talk to you about the raid here, sir?
They must have had a very good clue that Michelle was in there. Evidently she wasn't.
Then, 11 days after Michelle disappeared, there was a police press conference with Michelle's family.
There's all these microphones set out.
I knew something big was going to happen.
It's rainy, and it was sort of eerie.
After numerous tips and investigative leads, we are officially naming Dale Smith, the ex-fiancée, as the primary suspect in the disappearance of Michelle Parker. Mr. Smith is our primary focus.
Dale, if you're out there, honey, and you're listening to me, if you made a mistake and it was just a second of like, oh, I lost my head or whatever and you didn't know what to do, our family needs to have Michelle home.
It was surprising that they made such a declarative statement like that he was a suspect, but then they didn't arrest him. And it didn't really go anywhere from there.
Chief, is Dale Smith a murder suspect? We have a missing, beautiful young lady that we're trying to recover at this point.
It made everybody wonder, what evidence do they have? And is it not enough evidence for them to make an arrest?
Do you believe Dale Smith has lied to you?
We offered him a polygraph, and he simply refused.
We can only guess that Orlando police was trying to get a reaction out of Dale Smith.
Vaughn and Brad, Michelle's parents, they seemed like they knew this was going to happen.
You kept saying that, from the beginning, the whole family kept saying, Dale's not a suspect.
He was cooperating. He was cooperating. That's why.
Are you frustrated that he has not been taken into custody or not charged?
I'm very frustrated.
After Dale Smith was named as the suspect, all hell broke loose.
Dale Smith, whom police say is their only suspect in the disappearance of his ex-fiancée Michelle Parker, lunged at a news photographer, knocking him to the ground. People who arrived with Smith could then be heard jeering the fallen photographer.
The Today Show was among a group of photographers that caught the incident on camera.
Authorities actually took his kids away, saying that they feared for the kids' safety.
I'm Mark Nejame from Nejame Law, and I was one of Dale Smith's lead attorneys. It's natural that he would be a suspect. Any spouse of a missing other spouse is going to be the first suspect. Some people saying, well, I think it was him. That's not enough. And this isn't even one of those cases where a slick defense lawyer spins something. There's nothing there. There was none of Dale Smith's DNA found anywhere that would connect him to Michelle Parker's disappearance.
Up next, detectives get a break that could crack the case wide open.
Our jaws dropped and our eyes got wide.
People out there in Orlando know where Michelle Parker is. And I just hope that they will tell us. Just call Crime Line. It's anonymous. Tell us where she is so we can go and get her.
Michelle Parker is a hardworking mother of three. She's got 2 jobs, going to school, trying to be a cosmetologist. Now her ex-fiancé is the prime suspect in her disappearance.
She was an amazing girl. Everybody loved her. She always have a big smile. Even if she have a bad day, she was smiling.
Michelle Parker fights her ex-fiancé on the People's Court, but the same day the episode airs, she suddenly vanishes.
Are you looking at an arrest of Dale Smith?
We are still in the investigating stage.
About an hour and a half after that episode of the People's Court aired in Orlando, Michelle was at her fiancé, Dale Smith's house, dropping her twins off. And no one knows what went on when she was there.
All we're trying to do is connect the dots. and there's just a few more dots that we need to connect to resolve this.
Did you kill her? Do you have any idea where she is? Where's Michelle? Did you kill her? Where is she?
Does Dale Smith know where Michelle Parker is?
No, of course not.
What do you say to people who say that this is incredibly odd, that the same day that Michelle disappears, she's on the People's Court?
I would agree with them. It is odd. Those are the serendipitous things that happen in life. So it's wholly inappropriate that law enforcement would have, should have, did fully, completely, and absolutely investigate him from top to bottom, and everybody and everything surrounding him. But they came up with nothing to tie him into it.
My frustration lies in the fact that I'm a mother. This is my firstborn child. And I don't know where she is. And I don't know who did it for sure. I don't know where they put her. How disrespectful that is. Man up. You know? Do the right thing.
2 days after the state takes Dale Smith's twins away from him, he goes back to court.
The judge, to the surprise of everybody, gives him custody of the kids again. All of us were looking at each other in the media just like, I can't believe he has these kids back. He'd just been named a suspect. So for him to get his kids back, that was shocking.
It was an interesting hearing because right afterwards, it was Michelle Parker's mom, Yvonne, who went up and hugged Dale.
I hugged Dale to tell him that my grandbabies, I want to be able to see them, and I hope that, we can work something out because they're so important to me.
Smith's attorney says investigators interviewed the 3-year-old twins about the day their mom disappeared.
They talked actually to the children, who were very minor at the time, but there was simply a question without any adult being around. Did you hear them yelling? Did you hear was there any blood? Was there anything that anybody saw? And there was none of that.
Police didn't confirm if the children were interviewed. And while Dale Smith was granted custody of his children, his criminal past was also starting to surface.
Dale Smith had a record. He had been dishonorably discharged from the Marines. He had gotten into fights. He'd gotten charged with attempted aggravated battery. He had a drug charge.
In 2001, Dale Smith was court-martialed and convicted in a military court for domestic battery of his former wife. The Today Show spoke to her brother, whose pain is still evident.
The physical and mental abuse that he gave to her, she was pretty upset. She had never been treated like that by anyone.
He also had a restraining order that had been put out against him by Michelle. And the details were basically a yelling of obscenities. But one of the things he said, according to the paperwork, was, "Your day is coming." We don't know what that meant. But 2 years later, she disappeared, and he was the suspect.
Now, the judge considered that request, but dismissed it, saying there was insufficient evidence to issue a restraining order.
There was a pretty tumultuous relationship. Right before she went missing, they only spoke whenever they had to deal with the children. It was never good. It was always just like borderline walking on ice.
This is a man who had a record, and these kids were given back to him just 2 days later. Can you imagine?
I'm Rajan Joshi, one of the attorneys for Dale Smith. The Dale Smith you see on paper with the rap sheet is absolutely different than the Dale Smith who you'll see today. Dale Smith is honestly an amazing person. He cares for his kids like I have never seen a father care for his kids.
So then these pictures come out of Dale doing a hot body contest, and he's shirtless, and he's wearing jeans, and he's wearing a cowboy hat. And it certainly gave this idea of the type of guy that everybody thought that he was.
Dale Smith and Michelle Parker met while Dale Smith was doing a hot body contest at this bar called Cowboys. From my understanding, Michelle liked the way Dale looked and had a mutual friend introduce the two of them. They hit it off right away. Like any relationship, they had their problems, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Then, a major development in the case.
You guys, this is a real hard day. They found my daughter's cell phone. It just breaks my heart that my daughter's cell phone was found, because that means that there's something criminal. It's something criminal. And I had such high hopes that, maybe, we'd find her and she'd be alive. And I just don't think that's gonna happen.
Nearly 3 weeks after Michelle disappeared, investigators find Michelle's cell phone in Lake Conway, near the Neela Avenue Bridge.
Maybe it was the bright pink case that she kept that phone in, the iPhone 4, but dive teams were able to find it.
Michelle's cell phone last pinged a mile away from where it was eventually found. Divers searching nearby bodies of water made the discovery.
But it was found in remarkably good condition, even though it was underwater. Think of all the things that are on a phone. Photos, your locations, your texts, your emails, your call history. So this is a treasure trove for the police. What's really interesting is the location where the phone was found. It's basically on the route from Dale Smith's home to his parents' home. And this isn't some major thoroughfare. This is kind of a back road.
Did Dale ever talk to you and tell you what happened the day that Michelle dropped the twins off?
The kids were dropped off. He had to work early, so he took the kids over to his parents' house.
The phone was found 5 miles from Dale Smith's parents' home and near the cell phone tower that tracked Michelle's last ping.
The final text she sent said Waterford, which is a suburb in the complete opposite direction of where her phone was found.
Police said her phone was never in Waterford. They searched the towers. It was a decoy.
So we don't know if that was a red herring. We don't know if that was something that someone was trying to throw police off the trail or what.
Up next.
I know positively for sure that's a body. I have no doubt.
What clues are in the water? And a bombshell development in the case.
The perpetrator of this crime did not act alone. This was a two-person situation.
I miss her so much, and I want her home. She needs to be where she's supposed to be.
Michelle Parker, a beautiful mom of 3, vanishes after she appears on the People's Court, battling it out with her ex-fiancé over an engagement ring. But 11 days after Michelle disappears, cops were looking at Dale Smith.
We are officially naming Dale Smith, the ex-fiancé, as the primary suspect. There are no other suspects that I'm aware of.
We'll find Michelle. It's just a matter of time. And Dale can run, but he cannot hide.
This beautiful young woman, 33 years old, and she just vanishes. And the last person to see her, he has to know something.
Dale Smith did know that segment of People's Court was going to air. I would point out, though, he prevailed in that case. If it was Dale Smith, what did he do with the body if, in fact, he had killed her? There was no way he could have disposed of the body. The children were in the apartment. He didn't go anywhere.
I believe if he had nothing to hide, he would have taken a polygraph test. He would have been out here helping us find her.
Dale Smith's attorney claims his client did try to find Michelle.
He is specifically requesting and asking for a full-scale search team to come into Central Florida, headed by Tim Miller, the foremost searcher in the United States from Texas EquiSearch, to help find her. What guilty person would do such a thing? I've spoken to Tim Miller, my friend and former client, today. Without a body, any prosecution is going to be difficult.
We can't find Michelle's body to prove that she's deceased.
But this world-renowned search expert, who has found over 400 missing people and the remains of more than 250 others, has state-of-the-art equipment to find missing people.
I know positively for sure that's a body. My name's Tim Miller, founder and director of Texas EquiSearch.
After Michelle's phone was found in Lake Conway, speculation was mounting that Michelle could possibly be underwater. One of the tools investigators use in a case like this is a side-scan sonar.
We do this our training also as far as making a dummy, putting it in the water. Side-scan sonar works the same principles as ultrasound. It sends sound waves down, it picks up an image, it sends that image back.
In his career, Tim Miller says he's found over 50 bodies in cars using side-scan sonar.
Most times, literally, we can put a diver right down on the body. There he is. There's a picture of him. I know that's a body. Right there's a leg, there's an arm, there's a head.
Miller says that no matter how long someone's been missing, there is hope that a body could still be found underwater.
We have found one after 9.5 years. That was in a container. The skeletal remains were in the container. I was asked to help out with the Michelle Parker case. Family member contacted me, Martin James, attorney in Florida. He contacted me, wanted us down there. And we let him know that we never get involved until law enforcement approves this covenant.
However, Miller says the Orlando Police Department didn't approve his involvement in the search, but wouldn't comment further. And in a shocking twist, 2 years after Michelle's disappearance, police have another key piece of evidence: the last known images of Michelle's Hummer.
In the video, you'll see that the car is not following anybody. No one is following the car. And the glow stickers that made it so prominent are no longer on the vehicle at that time at 8:55 p.m.
It's at a stoplight. It's really seen not too far from where it was recovered by the police a day after her disappearance.
The Hummer was caught on video at 8:55 p.m. on the day she disappeared. That means there was a 5-hour gap from the time she dropped her twins off to the time of this video.
Michelle was not in the car. The sticker was off. Somebody who did something to Michelle was driving that vehicle.
But the most interesting thing about that press conference is that authorities said that there might have been 2 people who were involved in the disappearance.
I firmly believe, after investigating this case for 2 years, that the perpetrator of this crime did not act alone. This was a 2-person situation.
Do they see movement or something in the passenger side mirror that suggests someone is sitting there?
The windows were a very dark tint and you could not see in them.
But the other thing about there being 2 people is that takes this from being some little crime of passion to something that's a lot more coordinated, a lot more calculated, a lot more planned out. So in legal terms, this would certainly turn it to a first-degree murder case if a body were found.
Do you know, was there anybody at Dale Smith's home the day that Michelle dropped her twins off at his house?
If there was, neither I or anybody out of the 7 billion people on the planet are aware of it.
With no signs of an arrest, Michelle Parker's family decides to take matters into their own hands and fight back.
I am in the rage stage. I am angry. How somebody could do this to her and her family and her children. And they think they're going to get away with it. You know what? I'm going to fight. I'm mad. And Michelle deserves this.
Nearly 2 years after her disappearance, Michelle's mom files a wrongful death lawsuit against Dale Smith, the only suspect named in her disappearance.
Michelle is still missing. And I want answers. And this is how we're going to try to get them.
You feel certain that Dale is responsible?
I think he knows. I think he knows.
Orlando police have not provided any details as to why they are calling Dale Smith a suspect in Michelle's disappearance.
The relationship between Dale Smith and Michelle Parker's family has totally fallen apart. And so Michelle's parents, especially her mother, they're dying to see their grandchildren, the twins. But Dale has not let them. That's one of the biggest tragedies involved here.
My daughter is missing. I love her and her children like they're my own. They're my DNA, and they are so important.
Michelle's mother, Yvonne, has been a crusader for grandparents' rights and grandparents' visitation rights.
Those kids are not going to be safe. He has a volatile temper. At some point, he is going to explode again. It's just a matter of time.
That has passed in the state of Florida, largely due to Yvonne's efforts. But she herself has not personally been able to see her grandchildren. And that is a really painful irony.
That, to me, is just absolutely outrageous.
Dale Smith still has custody of the twins. Michelle's family preferred not to comment on the case.
There's so many questions, we don't have answers to them. All we know is that Dale Smith was the primary suspect in her disappearance.
Whatever happened to Michelle is a mystery to all of us, honestly. We could speculate, but neither Dale nor myself nor anyone who I know, including law enforcement, knows what happened to Michelle.
Dale Smith continues to deny allegations that he had anything to do with Michelle's disappearance.
All these years later, and this is still in the courts, and really still a story about a family that's been torn apart.
The family has said that the worst thing is not having any answers, not knowing what happened to her, really not even knowing if she's alive or dead.
Michelle's mom expressed on the Today Show how hard it's been.
I describe it as being at a funeral every single day. Every hour of every day. And it never goes away. And you can't get away from it as hard as you try.
They can suspect that she's gone, but they don't know for sure unless a body's found.
November 17th, 2011, I got a phone call from my nephew asking where his mother was. I still don't have that answer. It's very hard, and we have fought, and we have worked, and we have not slept. I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for all of your prayers, all of your support, for random days just sending us messages to tell us that, hey, you know, I saw a flyer, or I was thinking of your family. It truly does help, and it truly does mean the world to us.
Michelle Parker remains missing. She was last seen driving her black Hummer with the glow sticker. Her Hummer was an H3 model. The license number is AWG M26. Michelle was last seen wearing jeans, a Florida Gators hooded sweatshirt, and a silver cross necklace. If you have any information that could lead to her whereabouts, please call Crime Line at 800-423-TIPS.
We really have no idea how she got there.
Is this one of the greatest unsolved mysteries?
It must have been an absolutely horrifying discovery.
Surveillance video from the hotel's elevators show her acting unusual, as if she's hiding from someone.
It is truly bizarre.
Just a few miles from the glitz of Hollywood, California, and the beach along the Santa Monica Pier sits downtown LA. Known as the entertainment capital of the world, every year, millions of tourists flock to see Los Angeles. In January 2013, Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian student, took a trip to LA. But high above this sprawling metropolis would be a dark secret.
Her name's Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old college student from Vancouver, Canada. She was going on vacation. In her picture, she's smiling, she's wearing glasses, she's very casually dressed.
And Alyssa grew into a young woman who was said to be one of the nicest people you'd ever meet, who would do anything for anybody.
She was going to come down to California, taking public transportation, traveling by herself.
Then on this trip, she happened to go down to San Diego, and then she was coming through LA. She had her whole life ahead of her. So that makes what happened to her all the more shocking and bizarre. Alyssa Lam comes to Los Angeles on January 26, 2013. And 2 days later, on January 28, 2013, she checks into the Cecil Hotel. They had this super slick website that made it look like you were staying in this adorable little boutique hotel with really affordable rates in the heart of up-and-coming downtown Los Angeles.
But 3 days after checking into the hotel, Elisa Lamb mysteriously vanishes.
Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. Yesterday, we were made aware of robbery homicide of missing persons case, Elisa Lamb. She was last seen on the 31st at the Cecil Hotel at 640 South Main Street.
She would be in daily communication with her parents and her family back up in Vancouver, British Columbia, and the contact stopped, which raised suspicion for the family.
Right now we're asking your help. We have a photo. Parents are here. They've flown down from Vancouver, and we're seeking to get this photo out so we can find Elisa.
You see Alyssa's parents in the background just looking so heartbroken and bewildered and confused. And they don't say anything, but you can see on their faces how terrified they are for their daughter.
I remember this press conference because I was like, okay, there's, someone who, is of my race who's missing. There's agony. They want their daughter to be found. They want their sister to be found.
They contacted the hotel and verified that nobody had seen Elisa, and so a report was made with the Los Angeles Police Department.
There's been no communication at all, and that's worried us and worried the family, so we're proceeding with the investigation on that.
Has she ever gone missing before? I mean, you mentioned it was out of
No, there's no prior history of any kind of behavior like this or any problems like this.
So, of course, the place to start is back where she was last seen, which is at the Cecil Hotel.
Police discover Elisa was last seen the day she was scheduled to check out of the hotel.
Investigators spent countless hours evaluating all of the different video cameras inside, outside the adjoining hotel, and some of them were working, some of them weren't. They drew the conclusion relatively soon that they did not think that she had left the hotel. They think she's there. Now it's just a matter of finding her.
There was an intense search for Elisa Lamb. Flyers were passed out.
They did look through the hotel. They went floor by floor. They did talk to people. They did do a full search. There was no sign of Elisa Lamb.
The investigators would have gotten the hotel, the list of all the guests, and looked at the backgrounds of every single one of those. And the first people they would have looked at were sexual predators, people on parole, probation, violent offenders. Hotel workers were questioned, all of the staff, maintenance workers.
19 days after Elisa was last seen, there's disturbing news.
I get in that morning, and we're assigned to turn a story that day about this extraordinarily strange event happening at the Cecil Hotel. The first people I saw was this British couple. They had been at the hotel 8 days, and they then told a revolting story. I don't know how else to put it.
There was something wrong. The pressure in the water was terrible. The shower was awful. The water, and when you turned the tap on, the water was coming black first for 2 seconds, and then it was going back to normal.
They noticed the water pressure was erratic. The water had a very peculiar odor. They drank from the tap. They bathed in it. The complaints were coming in about the water. So the maintenance man went to the hotel's water supply, the 4 tanks that are on the roof, and he proceeds to check them.
He noticed that there was a hatch open on top of one of the tanks.
And now to a gruesome discovery in California.
The body of a Canadian tourist missing for 2 weeks now. It has been found.
Investigators are trying to determine how the body of a missing woman from Vancouver ended up inside a water tank on top of a Los Angeles hotel.
It ends up that Elisa Lamb's body had been decomposing in the hotel's water supply.
So when the maintenance worker discovered her, she was naked, floating face up in the water, and that's what caused him to contact the police. The tank was full, and the body was at the top, and her discarded clothes were at the bottom of the tank. The process to remove her body, they decided the best way to do it was to drain the tank, so that her body would slowly come to rest at the bottom of the tank, and then cut with a torch a hole in the side from which they could remove the body. That's the best way to treat the body in order to retain any potential evidence and maintain the condition of her body.
The state of her body is particularly memorable because she was in the water for some time before she was discovered.
Obviously saturated with water, the skin's very wrinkled.
She wasn't wearing any clothes.
There may not have been an immediate recognition of her because, the skin around her eyes would be kind of bulging and her skin would have been just very bloated and discolored.
Through markings on the body, investigators were able to determine it was Elisa Lam.
Along with her clothing, her wristwatch, and her room key were also discovered in the tank. The fact that a body has been found in a water tank on top of a hotel, that's automatically suspicious. That's just not where you expect to find a body. So when they found her body, of course they're going to treat it as if it's potentially a homicide in order to preserve evidence.
You could see the water towers from the ground. If you step back a couple of blocks, you could visibly see them.
There's 4 of them that work in conjunction with one another to fill and refill and regulate the water usage in the hotel.
They were 10 feet high, and they were very close together. So it would have been very hard for somebody to get into the water tanks.
The tanks are made out of, thick gauge steel. And, of course, the hatch is made out of the same material as the tank. It's heavy-duty steel.
It was really difficult to tell just from the video, but the opening was approximately this big.
The hatches were unlocked, unsecured. The hatch on it is an access portal, so to speak. It has hinges, but those hinges aren't intact, and you can literally just slide that hatch off to the side.
5 days before her body was found, police released the biggest bombshell in the case. Haunting video of Elisa's last moments alive.
It was surveillance video from the top of the elevator. You could definitely see that it was her.
You're not exactly sure what's going on. She's pushing buttons, she's cowering in corners.
At one point in the elevator, it looked like maybe she was hiding from someone. She seemed to be hiding in a corner, trying to make herself small and be out of sight if someone were walking by the elevator, and that was one of the moments that was rather odd.
Seems like she's talking to someone with these kind of wildly gesticulating hand movements.
I think that the elevator video is the best video that was retained so that somebody could recognize her. The clothing that was discovered in the tank with her matched the clothing that she was wearing in the videotape in the elevator.
With the release of the video, speculation was mounting about who could have been responsible for Elisa's death. And one of the biggest questions was, how did Elisa get up to the water tank?
It wasn't easy to get up to the roof of the hotel.
There was 2 access points, two ways to get up to the roof. There's a fire escape, and then there's also the internal stairwell that leads up to a door. That door is supposed to be alarmed so that if somebody opens that door from the inside, it notifies people down at the front desk, and that would cause them to send up a security guard or some hotel personnel to investigate why that door's been opened.
The hotel said the roof was a restricted area to guests.
The LAPD, the investigators, are not exactly sure how she accessed the roof.
The hotel staff says the roof's alarm system was working and was never activated during Elisa's stay.
One of the really suspicious things about Elisa's death is when the LAPD was investigating, trying to find her, they had canine units come to the Cecil, sniffing out for Elisa's scent.
Canines searched the hotel days after Elisa Lam was reported missing.
They did go to the roof with the canine unit, but the dogs detected no scent on the roof.
How did the dogs miss this? If she was walking on the roof, if she climbed her way to the water tower, how did the dogs miss that?
And the LAPD, weirdly enough, did not check the water tanks. So Elisa could have been in that tank the entire time, or There's the other really strange fact, and that fact is that since the canine unit didn't detect Alyssa's scent on the roof, perhaps her body had been placed in the tank after her death.
Once you get up to the roof, you've got to remember that everything attached to Elisa Lam, her body and her clothes, they're submerged in water, and that restricts the scent. And most people don't know that there was an alert. The dog did go down a hallway and alert at a window, and that window leads directly out to the fire escape. But that's where it lost its scent.
Police were now treating Elisa's death as suspicious.
Do you have her cell phone? Was it left
Could Elisa's cell phone explain what happened to her? And when the autopsy report is released,
I think somebody else had to have been involved for her to get in that position.
it would reveal some unsettling secrets and add to the confusion. Elisa Lam checks into downtown LA's Cecil Hotel. Chilling video from the hotel's elevator appears to show her hiding from someone. Then, she mysteriously disappears.
19 days after Alyssa was missing, the hotel starts getting complaints about the water quality in the hotel rooms. So the maintenance man for the Cecil goes up to the roof, checks the water tanks, and there he sees Alyssa's nude body floating in the water tank.
There was something about this death that's very gruesome. It's disturbing.
For as long as 19 days before Elisa's body was found, hotel guests brushed their teeth, bathed, and drank from the building's water supply.
Makes you feel physically sick, literally physically sick, but more than that, you feel psychologically it's not, you think about it and it's not good.
It really turns my stomach. That's why a lot of people have left and went to another hotel.
Police were calling Elisa's death suspicious. Initially based on how Elisa was acting in the hotel elevator, some had speculated that maybe she had been under the influence of drugs.
I'm Jason Tovar, and I performed the autopsy on Elisa Lam. I didn't find any illicit drugs.
Her toxicology report also didn't show any signs of alcohol intoxication. Elisa's autopsy was completed 4 months after her body was found, but it would only add to the confusion.
After my examination, I concluded that the cause of death was drowning and the manner of death was accident. There was no evidence of foul play or an intent to harm herself, so homicide and suicide were excluded.
But not everyone was satisfied with the autopsy findings. Some believed that this had to be more than just an accident.
My name is Katie Orphan. I was one of the last people to see Elisa Lam. One of the things that is certainly strongest for me is the sense that maybe the way her death was ruled is not accurate. That maybe she didn't accidentally drown. It would have been a lot of work for her to get up in that water tank.
Katie Orphan is manager of a bookstore 2 blocks from the Cecil Hotel, chillingly called the last bookstore. Elisa Lam visited the store on January 31st, 2013.
She kind of stood out as a customer. She was asking my coworkers and myself a bunch of questions, telling us about herself a little, and really engaging in a way that a lot of our customers don't necessarily. They just come in to shop, but she was really chatty.
The police contacted Katie Orphan after finding a receipt and some items from the bookstore in Elisa Lam's hotel room. Elisa Lam came into the store in the afternoon, and based on the police timeline, Elisa was seen in the hotel elevator video hours later.
I spoke with the manager. She was buying gifts for her family.
Yeah, she mentioned her
And
sister.
she had a lovely conversation with her. There was nothing unusual that she noticed.
She was smiling, she was cheerful. Yeah, she was in a good mood.
And I find that very inconsistent with all of the evidence that we see.
She asked us for recommendations, for directions on how to get to Pasadena. She bought a number of books, a number of records. She asked us about luggage limits and shipping to figure out how much she could buy and get home.
So she was planning ahead to doing things, which doesn't exactly match the profile of someone who's going to jump into a water tower.
She didn't sound like somebody who was wanting to die or didn't expect to be going somewhere. So I'm not seeing any indicators that she was in a depressive state at all.
I think somebody else had to have been involved for her to get in that position, for her to be found up there. The conclusion to her case is not satisfying to me, and I think to a lot of other people. It seemed like a very simple way of closing the case and saying, hey, there's nothing more we can do.
It takes an extreme amount of determination to say that she went out there to commit suicide.
I think most people, when you visit a hotel, especially in an older hotel, how do you know that there are water tanks on top of a building? How does she know that?
Why not just walk to the edge of the building and do a swan dive? I mean, it's just too bizarre to think that this just happened. I have difficulty believing that.
So was Elisa's body placed in the tank after her death? Police canines didn't detect her scent on the roof, and shocking details about the hotel were starting to emerge.
The Cecil's history is filled with really horrible stuff.
Who else was in the hotel?
Water from the tap, something the Cecil Hotel doesn't want you to see. Hotel resident Alvin Taylor helped us videotape it with a cell phone.
Yeah, it smells chlorine.
Chlorine. What the city is using to flush the hotel's entire water system after the gruesome discovery of a woman's body inside one of the rooftop tanks that may have been there for as long as 2.5 weeks.
Elisa Lam mysteriously vanishes from the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles, where she's staying.
They released this video of her in the elevator of the Cecil Hotel.
All these crazy theories swirling around because the video, it was a little scary.
Just strange behavior.
Either she's in some extreme distress, or as some people have speculated, she's hiding from someone, she's afraid. But it is noticeable.
Then, Elisa Lam's naked body was found floating in one of the hotel roof water tanks. The coroner ruled her death an accidental drowning, but not everyone agreed.
You know, there's always a possibility that someone took her up there.
Perhaps there were sex offenders in the area or in the hotel. Perhaps it was somebody who worked for the hotel.
I'd try finding other people that were staying there when she was there.
If you look on the website of the Cecil Hotel, it makes it sound like it is a historic, interesting, rich in history place you want to go to in Los Angeles. I can tell you from being there, that is not the sense that I got.
When you walked inside the lobby of the Cecil, it was kind of the epitome of faded glamour. There are these beautiful columns. It definitely had a feeling of The Shining. There's these lovely murals that harken back to the time when the Cecil was a very nice upper middle class hotel in downtown Los Angeles, which when it was built in the 1920s was the center of LA. It was where all the nice hotels and restaurants and theaters were.
Thank you for calling the European-style Cecil Hotel, the best affordable hotel in downtown Los Angeles.
What the website didn't tell you was that one half of the building was still housing basically for extremely low income and transient tenants who had lived there for a long time.
Some of those permanent residents have sordid histories. Many of them are drug users. Many of them are on probation or parole.
The Hotel Cecil was basically on Skid Row in Los Angeles, where there was rampant mental illness and drug addiction and crime. It was a really rough area. I just don't think you can ignore the fact that if there was foul play, it would have been very easy for somebody from the other side of the building to have stalked Alyssa, to have known about how to get to the roof, having lived there for years, and to have put her into the tank.
If we were looking at this as a potential murder situation, we would be looking for someone who was casing the hotel, looking for somebody who was a vulnerable target. Seeing someone who's young, out of her element, and friendly might be somebody who a perpetrator would hone right in on, because they would be less likely to be noticed.
The Cecil's history is filled with really horrible stuff.
In the 50s and 60s, again, economic decline in downtown Los Angeles. This hotel became a place where people would go to end their lives.
There had been so many suicides at the Cecil that the people who lived there called it the suicide. Most of the people committed suicide by jumping out the windows, and a lot of times they would check in under assumed names.
Since its opening in 1924, the Cecil Hotel has seen as many as 13 deaths from unnatural causes.
And in 1964, there was a very tragic murder that is still unsolved that took place at the Cecil. And that was the murder of a woman named Goldie Osgood. She was raped and she was strangled, and her killer was never found.
Then there were serial killers who stayed there.
In the 1980s, the serial killer Richard Ramirez, the infamous Night Stalker, lived there. Another serial killer from Austria in the 90s, Jack Unterweger, stayed there.
For some reason, there was this dark cloud over this hotel's history.
But when Alyssa checked into the hotel, though it was known as the Hotel Cecil, its actual name was the Stay on Main. And that was another kind of rebranding effort. So one of the really weird things about Alyssa's disappearance and her subsequent death, to this day, we don't know where Alyssa's cell phone went.
Had it been discovered in her room, we know it wasn't in the tank. There are phone records in there that are going to be very revealing as to who she's called, who she's received calls from, and the investigators would have used that to track her movements.
When police were asked at the press conference concerning Alyssa's disappearance where the cell phone might be, they didn't really answer.
Talking to her parents via cell phone, do you have her cell phone? Was it left in the hotel?
I don't want to talk about the cell phone right now very much. We have some of her property, but she was in regular contact with her parents, and up until 5 days ago, 5-6 days ago.
The only thing you can think of is that phone was more than likely stolen, and someone else took it. They either used it, sold it, whatever. The phone remains a mystery.
So was Elisa Lam killed after encountering someone at the hotel? And what would have been the motive?
It is possible to get into a person's room, rape her, kill her, and get away with it.
Nobody notified. There's no water. I have to check out and find another hotel, have a business meeting.
But trouble at the Cecil Hotel isn't just a maintenance issue. It's a suspicious death investigation for the LAPD.
21-year-old Elisa Lam decides that she wants to travel and come down to California. She checked into the Cecil Hotel. She was last seen acting erratically on elevator surveillance video and then disappeared.
She certainly seems afraid of something or someone. I've always thought that there was a real threat, something to be afraid of outside of the elevator.
She was found 19 days later after hotel guests complained of an unusual odor and color in the hotel's water.
That initiated a maintenance man to go up and check the water tanks. As he peered inside, he discovered the floating body of Elisa Lam.
News that still isn't sitting well with some hotel guests who tell us they're disgusted.
Wouldn't you be if there was a dead body in the water you were using and drinking?
It's kind of odd, the whole damn thing.
The medical examiner ruled Elisa's death was an accidental drowning.
I feel that she likely climbed up there on her own.
But some disagreed with the ruling and thought there were still too many unanswered questions and strange circumstances surrounding Elisa's death.
The biggest question that appears to be unanswered is how did she get in the tank?
There's potentially two ways to get into that tank. There's the ladder that allows you to climb the side of the tank and then go into that open access portal.
The tanks had 20-pound metal lids, so they would have been pushed to the side before she got into the water tank.
Or there's another ladder that leads to the top of the elevator shaft, which is higher than the tank, and if you were up there on that platform, you could jump down onto the top of the tank, where she ultimately was discovered.
But either way, it was a really tricky kind of maze-like situation to actually get up and then into one of these 4 water tanks.
I visited the scene of where she was found on the rooftop of the hotel and looked at the tanks, but where the location was difficult to get to. The terrain surrounding the tanks was fairly difficult to maneuver.
Now we're talking about a young lady who is not, by a lot of standards, big, maybe 120 pounds, that can climb that ladder, single-handedly push that lid off, which weighs only about 20 or so pounds, but still it takes some effort. You have to think maybe something else was involved, another person.
The fact that she would have had to have done all of these steps to get into this tank really makes you wonder, was there foul play?
And not all experts agreed with the coroner's ruling that this was an accidental drowning.
My name is John Heiseroth. I've performed during my career about just north of 6,000 complete autopsies. When I look at the autopsy report, it's hard to conclude from the objective findings that Elisa Lam died as a result of drowning. There was no water in the lungs. In a drowning, there's oftentimes water in the stomach. There's no water in the stomach in this case.
The lungs showed post-mortem changes. This was not conclusive one way or the other for a drowning, as the tissues had undergone changes, decomposition changes.
There was too much decomposition. There was not a lot to save there. I'm Dr. William Maroney, and I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner for Bay County, Michigan. Ordinarily, if you look at a good, healthy set of lungs in an autopsy, they kind of look like the sponge in your bucket when you're washing your car. But after 19 days at greater than ambient temperatures, submerged in water, you're going to actually make them more look like slimy liver. So there is no clear, unambiguous source of water in the lungs.
She was found in a tank of water, but being found in a tank of water doesn't necessarily mean you drowned in that tank of water. You could have been killed outside and dumped in that tank of water.
We're backing into the decision that this is a death by drowning instead of aggressively presenting it. It's a default. That's what it is. It's a default.
What's even weirder about the body is the fact that there were no scratches or bruises.
There's nothing to indicate that she had any ligature marks or petechial hemorrhaging in her eyes, which would indicate she'd been choked.
So if one wants to hypothesize that she was killed outside and then dumped in the tank, it would be virtually impossible to conclude that she would have been suffocated, perhaps by a pillow. There's no way, even the best forensic pathologists, unless they're extremely suspicious, would detect that. Not only that, in this case, she was 3 weeks decomposed. So to find any evidence that she had had a pillow over her face to suffocate her would be completely gone.
The speculation that Miss Lam was murdered would be just that, speculation.
But there was something else in the autopsy report adding to the speculation.
There was an error that was made on a checkbox.
Based on the handwriting, some believe Elisa's death was marked as an accident on June 15th, and 3 days later, something caused the coroner to change her death to undetermined. But Dr. Tovar says the changes were made at the same time, and the date above the accident box actually says June 18th.
It would be probably wiser if the coroner would have ruled the case undetermined, because the findings for the cause of death, drowning, aren't there. The findings for the determination of accidental death aren't there.
And if authorities thought it was so easy for Elisa Lam to get into the tank, why didn't the LAPD check the tank when she went missing?
In this case, when they originally searched the hotel roof, they missed that hatch. And unfortunately, we have to own that.
But one of the autopsy findings had Dr. Heiseroth really puzzled.
Miss Lam, when they finally found the body, she was found floating on the water facing up. I find that a little bit problematic.
We had a rogue ex-LAPD officer running around killing people. All of Southern California was on high alert. That drew some of the attention away from Elisa's case, unfortunately. There were up to 18 officers and detectives initially assigned to help find Elisa. A lot of those resources had to be retracted in order to go attend to that more urgent, I hate to say that, but more life-threatening situation. And so then it came down to 4 primary detectives.
Something else odd was discovered at the scene. Could Elisa's clothes that were found in the tank with her actually hold clues to what happened on the roof? Elisa Lam is found dead in a water tank on top of LA's Cecil Hotel. Her death was ruled an accidental drowning, but not everyone believed it was just an accident. If she was murdered, what would have been the motive?
It is possible to get into a person's room, rape her, kill her, and get away with it.
So there's speculation as to, well, where is the information on the rape kit? It's there, it's in the case file. And the results of examining that rape kit were that there was no evidence whatsoever of any type of sexual assault.
I don't think that means too much to me. This is a woman who's been soaking in a vat of water for 3 weeks. It doesn't surprise me that had she been raped, it would have been all washed out. It would have been all washed out.
On exam, we didn't identify any evidence of trauma to the anus or genital regions.
However, Dr. Tovar did discover blood pooling in her anal area.
I feel that the fluid that was collected there was a result of her decomposition.
It could have been sexual assault. I'm saying it's possible because Ms. Lam was fairly advanced in her decomposition. And I don't know how or why they didn't rule that out. They chose just to say, it's decomposition, and we're done.
Also fueling speculation of a possible sexual assault was the fact that Elisa Lam was found naked.
That's very unusual.
The reason that she was naked and why she was found that way is not necessarily determined by the autopsy itself. Her clothing was present in the tank with her, including a watch and her room key.
The clothes were the same clothes she's wearing in the bizarre hotel elevator surveillance video.
I personally believe that it's probably more likely than not that if she were to be thrown in that tank to get rid of the clothes, they were thrown in after her.
She may have been forced to remove her clothes and get into the tank. Probably the biggest question I have about the crime scene that hasn't been answered, what are the weird sandy particles that were found on her clothes that were floating next to her in the water tower?
So could it have been from some of the material from the roof or whatever?
Had she placed her clothes on the roof before she got into the water tank? Had somebody else made her strip and placed her clothes on the roof?
I examined the clothing and noticed that there was this sand-like particulate. What it actually was not determined by myself.
The 2 explanations that law enforcement ultimately accepted was that there was either sediment from the bottom of the tank that was pre-existing or sediment that had been transferred there in her clothes from going to the beach.
But it seems like if she were swimming freely in the tank, all the sediment would wash off the clothes, and then if she took the clothes off, they wouldn't have any sediment on them. Think about it, you're like washing the clothes while swimming through the tank. Usually in a forensic case, if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not correct.
But there was something else in Elisa's autopsy that would stir up even more controversy, and it might reveal the answer to the biggest question everyone wanted to know.
Elisa Lam is a college student in Vancouver, Canada. She goes to Los Angeles and checks into the Cecil Hotel. She was discovered in a water tank, found floating in the water that the hotel guests had consumed.
Her death was ruled an accidental drowning, but some believed she may have been murdered. And in her autopsy, something would raise even more questions.
Bipolar disorder was listed as a contributing factor in her death. It is my opinion that she likely, in her state of mind that she was in, somehow climbed to the top of the tower and got into the tank, at which point there's no way to get out of the tank, and she ultimately drowned.
Just because somebody has bipolar disorder doesn't mean they're suicidal.
I just think there's a lot of unexamined things that, yes, could point to just a very tragic mental breakdown, but could also point to foul play, perhaps from somebody who knew the Cecil very, very well.
It's possible that someone was able to get her up there because she was more adventure-seeking and she was in a state of mind where she wasn't evaluating risk in the same way that she might normally. And we do know that when people are looking to prey on someone, they're not looking for the really confident, grounded person who says, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing?
The fact that she would have had to have done all of these steps to get into this tank, it's all so elaborate and so unbelievable, especially if Elisa was having some kind of psychotic break or mental break.
So if she's having a psychotic break, how does she then have a completely normal conversation with this very astute manager of a bookstore? I don't know.
And you can even see that in the elevator. You know, she's trying to hide from something that's taking place in her mind, but it's her reality.
I feel like watching it, she's afraid of something external and that it's not just an internal fear or panic.
One of the questions I had was if she could get in, how come she couldn't get out? And what I've learned is that these tanks are very much like the tank on the back of your toilet. And as the water goes down, the further from the top you are. And so as that water's being used and it's going down, the less ability you have to climb out. And even if the water was at that top level, she would not have been able to grab hold of anything to pull herself out. So she was doomed the moment she got in there. It's a horrific way to die.
Months after Elisa Lam's death, her parents filed a lawsuit against the hotel management for negligence, but a judge dismissed the case. And as far as the Cecil Hotel, its future remains a mystery.
The developer who recently purchased the Cecil said he was going to turn it in to this cool, live-work space for young professionals, but it's been years and nothing's happened. If you go to the Cecil today, it's locked. Sometimes you see what looks like tenants going in and out of the building, but then if you look up, it looks abandoned.
There's no satisfying conclusion to this story, and I think because of that, it really has become a much bigger story than I anticipated.
The death of Elisa Lam is one of the great mysteries of our time. There is no story that I get asked about more than Elisa Lam, hands down.
There was something about this death, the way it was found, what happened to her, and the mystery around it, that people were incredibly fascinated by it.
There should somehow be footage that corresponds with the famous elevator footage. There should be some proof. There should be something that tells us what happened to her.
This case could be reopened if there was enough public pressure.
In forensic medicine, a case is never truly closed all the way. You know, it can always be revisited if new information, new facts come to play to investigate.
Although the case has been closed, no one to this day still knows exactly how Elisa Lam got up on the hotel roof and inside the water tank. and the whereabouts of her phone still remains unclear. If you have any tips that could lead investigators to reopen the case, please contact Crime Stoppers at 1.
Sau đó mình sẽ chuyển sang màu xanh lá nhạt hơn để tô vào mặt bên trong của cái lá sen này nha. Bước cuối cùng mình sẽ chuyển sang tô cái đầm nước. Ở đây thì có 4 cái đầm. Mình sẽ tô bằng hai màu xanh, đó chính là màu xanh dương đậm và một cái màu xanh dương nhạt này. Bây giờ mình sẽ sử dụng màu xanh dương nhạt để tô ở phía bên ngoài cái vòng tròn lớn này này. Mình sẽ tô bằng cái màu xanh nhạt. Đây nha, mình đã tô xong một cái vũng nước rồi, các bạn cũng sẽ tô những cái vũng nước còn lại màu tương tự nha. Mình cũng sẽ tô màu xanh nhạt trước. Sau đó mình sẽ tô màu xanh đậm này vào trong cái phía bên trong của cái vòng vũng nước này.